Okay, I'd like to call the meeting of the CA Board of Directors to order at 7:05 today. I want to thank everyone who came out. In attendance for the board, we have Rafia and Renee, Dick, Shari, Nancy, Lynn, Janet, Ginny, Alan on the phone, and Andy. Milton is unfortunately under the weather and not able to join us tonight. And Alan, you're there, right?
I am.
Thank you, Alan. Remind everyone that this meeting is being recorded and broadcast across the internet. And I will remind all board members to please speak into the mic so that everyone can hear both in the recording and also out in the audience. Okay, announcing of closed meetings. I have two forms. There was a closed meeting of the Board of Directors on January 13th, 2020. In attendance were Dick and Renee, Lynn, Janet, Alan, Milton, Nancy, Rafia, Andy, and Ginny and Shari. The meeting was closed under section 3 and 6. 3, consultation with legal counsel on legal matters. 6, consideration of terms and conditions of a business transaction in the negotiation stage as the disclosure could adversely affect the economic interests of the homeowners association. The vote to approve was unanimous. Meeting was closed at 7:05, opened at 9:05, and the purpose was update on a legal issue. There was a meeting of this Architectural Resource Committee also on Monday, January 13th. Present were Sherry Fanneroff, Deb Bach, Ed Gordon, Ann McKissick, and Carl McKinney. There really was a meeting there. And those were the 5 people in attendance. It was closed under Section 4, consultation with staff personnel, consultants, attorneys, or other persons in connection with pending or potential litigation. The meeting was closed at 1:03 p.m. and opened at 2:10 p.m. And the purpose was discussion of new and ongoing covenant cases. Okay, so I'd like to move on to the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Second.
Ginny moved and Rafia seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Thanks. Disclosure of conflicts of interest. None have been disclosed to me. So we're going to move on to resident speak out. So Bonnie, if you could please hand me a copy of the resident speak out list. Thank you, Bonnie. Okay, first up, we have Lisa Scotta, I believe. So when you come up, please speak into the mic so that everyone can hear you, and also our recording will pick it up.
Okay.
Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you. All right, hello. My name is Lisa Scotta, and I am co-president of the Longfellow Cooperative Nursery School, along with Eileen Brewer, who has also spoken at these meetings on behalf of our preschool this year. Eileen and I have attended the most recent CA board meetings regarding the neighborhood centers, as well as the collaborative CA Village Center meeting last week, and have been following this issue closely, as you can imagine. We were uplifted last week, hearing mostly a collective voice speak in favor of the centers, not only for the purpose of Columbia's cooperative nursery schools, but also for a host of other uses. My husband and I moved to Columbia in 2009, and the aspect of the community that has attracted us the most can be summed up in what Alan Klein noted last week. Columbia has not necessarily followed the trends of this world, but instead it looks at what the world needs and says, how can we provide it? Ellen's statement was beautiful, a unifying statement of hope, community, and of higher purpose, which was reflected in the voices and remarks at that meeting. We live in an era of division and separation, where many people in our society are inclined to hide behind screens in a virtual community rather than engage in the one outside their doors and get to know their neighbors face to face. Because of this, and likely many other things, we are suffering. And as a community, we have an obligation to serve and help our neighbors. To do this, our community members need a chance to develop interpersonal relationships so that empathy and understanding become the norm. I can think of no better way to do that than intentionally creating opportunities for connection in the heart or the center of our neighborhoods. Columbia's neighborhood centers, utilized by our youngest children all the way up to the oldest and wisest of our community, are a perfect place to do just that. And the thought of taking steps away from such an ideal is unfortunate. The discussion during last week's meeting gave us hope, but also had us slightly concerned because this meeting never made it to the board calendar for public access. Maryland's Open Meetings Act exists to increase the public's faith in government, ensure the accountability of government to the public, and enhance the public's ability to participate effectively in our democracy, basically to prevent exactly what happened regarding the scheduling of last week's meeting. It causes one to ask questions such as, why was such a meeting hidden from the public? Nobody else, including our co-op counterparts at the other schools, got the chance to witness the discussion. In fact, as we looked further into this issue, we realized nothing of significance has been published publicly about the neighborhood centers since 2018. As an advocate for Columbia's neighborhood centers, I believe that the public needs to be more informed about the meetings regarding our centers and how these centers can benefit them. Additionally, the public should also be informed of the interactions between CA and the village boards in a spirit of full transparency. Do I have 5 minutes because I'm speaking on behalf of a group?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
So 2 more. Okay. Along those lines, I was eager to fill out the recent survey regarding the neighborhood centers. However, the survey questions seem leading and rather biased, and unfortunately were narrowly scoped, focusing largely on the nursery schools rather than the many potential uses of the centers. While those were discussed at the meeting last week, the general population of Columbia would likely remain in the dark about what is going on with these buildings and how they could be utilized. One might argue that based on the questions, that a general citizen might not know why they should care about the centers if they didn't have a preschooler, even though the buildings are used for many reasons. Additionally, the financial questions on the survey were not illustrative of how the neighborhood centers are funded and what CA does in relation to these centers, just for clarifying purposes. This would have been important to note, especially as people answer questions in regard to the uses. Finally, no information was provided regarding the sample size or demographics used in the survey. Was it sent to CA members only? What about the people using the centers that are outside of Columbia? What about people that would use the centers but weren't aware of their existence due to a lack of publicity? What about low-income families? In short, what about a greater array of neighbors that we have the privilege to serve as human beings who choose civility? On the CA website, it states that the vision of the Columbia Association is to create and support solutions to meet the evolving needs of a dynamic and inclusive community. It also notes that CA will do so with a mission of engaging our diverse community, cultivating a unique sense of place, and enhancing quality of life. I urge you, not just for the sake of our children, but also of our entire community, to keep, invest in, and advertise the many uses of Columbia's neighborhood centers, and to do so by informing the public with greater transparency. Capitalize on this chance to change lives by fostering connection one person at a time to truly become a new city on a hill.
Thank you, Lisa. Any questions? Alan, any questions? Thank you, Lisa. Next up, we have Irene Jallo. Welcome, Irene.
So thank you so much for the opportunity. I am Latina. Of course, you you saw me. This is the first meeting that I'm attending, and I'm glad to speak about my programs, about the programs that I'm running in the community. So I would like to introduce myself. My name is Irene Jallo, and I am director and founder of Kidimundo and my Spanish Academy. Both programs are Spanish immersion programs for children that are running in Locust Park Neighborhood Center. So I moved from Montgomery County to Fells Lake neighborhood 16 years ago with my entire family because I fell in love of the multicultural community in the Columbia area. I participated a long time ago in the opening of a library, and in that moment, my family and me, we were looking for a home, and I definitely, as educator, my bachelor's is in education and early childhood education, I saw the community, and I, of course, fell in love of this fantastic neighborhood center. So we decided to move and invest our time and our family here and move entirely here. So as I mentioned, I raised my kids in the Phelps Lake Elementary Schools. Now I graduate a child in the Howard High last year. So I am a neighbor. And I raised my children attending to the community activities, enjoying activities in Stonehouse, and participating in different programs around Columbia. That was fantastic. So as I mentioned, I am director of Kidimundo, and Kidimundo, I have to let you know, this is the first Spanish immersion learning center in the entire county. So it was a challenge to opening a center. I'm dealing with different challenges every single day. It's not really easy, but I believe the language, the spread the language learning in children especially, it's a fantastic opportunity for the future. And as a vision of the CA, of course, we have to be inclusive. So that's just my goal, that's just my compromise with the community. And also I want to let you know that Kidimundo is the first nature preschool in Howard County. That means we are going green. So our activities are green entirely, and we are promoting that families can participate in green activities every week. We are part of the North American Association for Environmental Education because, again, we understand that the importance of being green and let the kids learning about how to be green in every activity. So Kidimundo and my Spanish Academy are located in Locust Park Neighborhood Center. And especially Locust Park, where in my understanding is pointed to be demolished very soon, and we are very concerned. My families of my Kidimundo and families of my Spanish Academy are very, very concerned. So when I founded my Spanish Academy was located in Ellicott City, but then I moved my Spanish Academy to Columbia because I understand it's very, it's the diverse community again, their families are coming. We have around 50 families coming every single week for receiving classes, for kids attending to the lessons. And the kids are between 2 years old to 15 years old. And this is amazing. The program is very, very interesting for families, and young kids are learning a lot. So again, I'm coming here to speak and share my thoughts and my concerns with you about what is going to happen with Locust Park and the rest of the community centers, because we are not just talking about the centers, we are talking about the tennis court, the basketball court that are very near to the places that we are running. And of course, if a daycare center is located close to these places where the kids can be free running and having fun, it's important to keep these places open. That will be all. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Any questions? Janet?
So congratulations. I am very
Thank you.
happy that you're there. One, I wanted to let you know that there are currently no plans to demolish Locust Park.
Okay.
So we are evaluating everything, and that is not on the horizon.
Thanks.
Second, I was just curious if you knew what percentage of your kids came from either Columbia or the surrounding neighborhood.
Yes, I don't have the numbers specifically for how many people is coming exactly in Kidimundo from Columbia or my Spanish Academy, but definitely we have a big population coming from Columbia neighborhoods.
And I just wanted to say I wish that you existed when my kids were little, because
Thank you. No, thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have May Beal. Welcome, May.
Good evening, everyone. I'm here because I really would like for you to get a feel and understand that people that actually utilize the center and what it means to them. Well, I have been a resident of Columbia for 40 years, but one of the things that my organization does, I'm the vice president of the Southeastern Howard Chapter of the Continental Societies Incorporated, which is a national organization that does programs in the areas of health, education, recreation, arts, and humanity. And we have every meeting that we have at the neighborhood center. We even do our retreats there. We hold special programs for our children. This year, we were able to use the facility to put about 100 backpacks together for our students that partnership with the Multi-Service Center. And one of the things that I found about the Owen Brown Neighborhood Center especially, it's the hub of our community. They offer so many great opportunities for the community to get together. They have the little carnivals, and one of the things that's really nice is the food truck night. And a lot of the people may not be aware of the importance of the community center. Sometimes people say, oh, it's probably expensive to keep it going, but it's like your house. I just put a new roof on my house, had to get a fence, and had to have 5 trees cut down. Well, it's like anything else. If you have it over time, you're gonna have to renovate it. You're gonna have to make it people friendly. There are some things that you're gonna have to do. So I hope that because in the future you may have to renovate some of them, it won't deter you from trying to keep it open and saying that it's expensive, because it is when you're doing renovations. But if you had things over time, you may have to. And one of the things that I would like to also say is that it's so many things, like I heard one of the persons that spoke tonight talk about the preschool schools, some of them are held there. Churches come there to use the facility. So it's really utilized by a myriad of organizations as well as community residents. And I can't begin to say how important it is for whomever have the pen to sign or whoever has to take the votes, that they really take into consideration what the community center has been to our community. Thank you.
Thank you, May. Any questions?
Yeah.
Jenny? May, Jenny has a question for you, if you could.
Yeah, just one question. Do you use a specific neighborhood center, or do you use whatever's available depending on the event you're going to have?
We have a contract with the Owen Brown Community Center, and that's where we do our.
Owen Brown?
Yeah, Owen Brown Community.
Oh, it's
Center.
not a neighborhood center,
Yeah,
though.
neighborhood center, okay.
So you're basically
Yeah.
functioning in Owen
Yeah,
Brown
and
Community Center.
And we use other facilities as well, because we've used, I hope I'm not getting them mixed up, because I know we do use, we have used the Kara Hall, is that a community center?
Yeah.
Yeah, Kara Hall, and we have used the one that's off of, I can't think of it, but I think it's in Hickory Ridge. That
Yeah.
neighborhood center.
Hawthorne.
Hawthorne
Yeah,
Hawthorne Community
Yeah,
Center.
that is really great, because we
Okay,
use
got
that
it.
sometimes for some of our programs.
Yeah.
We primarily use the community center on Brown, but we go to the different ones at different times if we are having an organizational kind of thing. If we
Okay.
can't get it at one place, we get it at another place. Like we were, like I'm with the Howard County Central Democrat Committee, and we were going to have our political forum at Linden Hall, but we had to cancel it because of the inclement weather on Saturday.
Yeah.
So we do utilize your neighborhood centers extensively.
If I could help you a little with that, they're not actually neighborhood centers, they're
Okay.
community
Okay,
centers.
okay.
What we're looking at are the small neighborhood
Uh-huh,
centers,
okay,
so,
okay,
okay,
okay.
thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Jeannie Wessel. Welcome, Jean.
Good evening. Well, you know, I composed a testimony for tonight, and I felt good about it, but then I went to visit 12 of the centers. And, you know, what I saw was so much more than what I had written. So while it will be submitted, here's what I'd really like to say about those centers. When I visited the neighborhood centers, I saw 3- and 4-year-olds doing a science experiment and loving it. They were engaged, laughing, and listening to the parent, it was a co-op, explaining what to do. They will be ready for the STEM programs when they get to Howard County Public Schools. I saw little ones cuddled around an aide who was reading. No, she wasn't reading, she was creating a story for them. It was amazing. A fairy tale, yes, but for that time and space, in that warm lap, they listened and listened. I saw little children and also older ones who were chatting away in Spanish. And in the only Spanish, only daycare center in Columbia. Can you say they will not be good learners at Howard County Public Schools? Probably you can't say that. I saw children a little older than toddlers playing games and listening to each other. No pushing, no screaming, real honest play like you used to do and I used to do on the playground. And all because they had a place to go every day that was theirs, and they loved it. And because when their parents had to go to work, maybe because they live in Columbia and it's a pretty expensive place to live, they had a stable place to go every day. So to close those centers will take away from them a security, a place they belong. It's not just a building, it's theirs. Okay, so maybe it'll cost CA some money to do some repairs and upgrades or whatever, but it's worth it to keep those children in a safe place where they're already becoming ready to enter our public school system. So please rethink your plan to shut down those neighborhood centers. There are other people who use them as well. It's been mentioned, dancers, musicians, scout troops. Let them keep their safe haven too. Find another place to cut the budget. Let the children and teachers continue to create a piece of love and safety and good old-fashioned play. I think CA can afford that.
Thank you, Jeannie. Any questions? Thank you, Jeannie. Next up is Pat Hersey. Welcome, Pat.
Hello, and thank you all. Nice to see you again. And again, I want to thank everyone for signing on to the Climate Emergency Declaration. That's so near and dear to our hearts, and we were fighting so hard to keep Columbia looking green. And this was a huge step, and it really gives us some impetus to keep moving forward in the community. So we thank you. It just makes my heart proud when I go to the gym now and I see everyone using their reusable bottles. It's like it makes my day. This will be short and sweet because, quite honestly, we don't have time in this climate emergency. We all know that plastic is a major driver of the climate emergency. And single-use plastic bottles is one of the banes of my existence, and it certainly is an unnecessary item to use at events. So,
Keep saying.
Banner White would like to show you one of the examples that we would love to have you consider investing in. These are stations that can be used at events. You can advertise people to bring their reusable bottles, and now with the gym getting their reusable bottles in, it makes it much easier for people to now know to bring their reusable bottles at events, and it will make less water bottles and a better place for our community. So we can keep making Columbia green. So thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Any questions?
Any questions?
Sure.
Yeah, I think that's a fabulous idea. And how much does one of those cost? Do you have any idea?
They can cost thousands of dollars. But we would like to see if we could go with the county to work together and use it at all events. We would like them to be all events. You know, we have to view everything through the lens of a climate emergency. And when you think of these events, and we all know the amount of trash that they are produced at every event. So if we can just say that plastic bottles are not an option, and we have an option for you.
So that's something that could be rented, for
Yes,
example.
it is, yes,
By various organizations
Yes.
for particular community events.
yes.
Okay, thank you. That's great.
Yeah,
Jenny?
yeah, I just want to compliment you. You guys were real leaders in eliminating plastic at our clubs, and I'm very proud of your whole organization. And also, maybe if we combine a beer part of that with the other, could raise the funds to pay for the rental.
There
Never
you
mind.
go. There you go.
Now, we're going to move on here. Thank you, Pat.
Chairman isn't happy with me.
Well, then we have the margaritas.
Next up, Alice Newfield. Alice, anything to add?
But, and kind of going off of what Pat was saying, Earth Day is coming up, believe it or not, and it's going to be the 50th anniversary.
Oh,
50th anniversary of Earth Day.
Wow.
And we thought, what a great, time to kind of celebrate what Columbia has, started. We're still in pledge and taking on, the climate emergency declaration. We're wondering if there's any way to provide a facility, whether it's at the People Tree, to kind of have an event. But we want to do it with all the other environmental groups that are in Howard County, Sierra Club and whatnot, and have kind of a festival. I mean, we would bring our own tables and things like that, and just what a way to kind of celebrate and spread the word, throughout Columbia. I don't know whether, it could be somewhere downtown in Columbia or the pavilion at Lake Elkhorn. That is part of CA, if that would be possible, but really try to, promote green living in Columbia and promote CA through Earth Day. So we're trying to wonder if there's a little way to get some money in the budget to provide a facility for that to happen. But we certainly help the planning of it.
Thank you, Alice. Any questions? Thank you. Next up, okay, Paul Burridge? Basics. Welcome, Paul.
Thanks for trying. Yeah. My name is Paul Basic. I'm chair of Our Revolution Howard County. I'm here because Ginny Thomas sent out an invitation for us to come in and comment on CA budget considerations. So I'm here to express support for expenditures in the area of the declared climate emergency in particular, while at the same time underlining savings in that same area, while encouraging some countywide dialogue and cooperation. I'll try and keep the rest of my comments down to 2 minutes. Fortunately, the Columbia Association has chosen to lead by example, passing that ambitious and unanimous resolution on climate emergency on September 26th. The CA is laying out real objectives to advance climate change mitigation and adaptation efforts such as reducing energy consumption, supporting clean energy development, conducting Columbia-wide climate vulnerability assessment, and implementing sustainable land use practices. You are to be congratulated, and I would add emulated. In the area of savings, it is obvious that some actions will actually save money when advanced properly. Still, some of those will require upfront investment, which will pay off fairly quickly. Others, such as adjusting CA-run events, will save in the area of avoiding single-use plastic and styrofoam, installing smart water stations, and pursuing advanced composting and recycling. But there are things that the CA is incapable of putting into practice, things that are clearly outside the jurisdiction of the CA. Here is the opportunity to challenge and even partner with the county. How much easier and cheaper it might be for CA if the county were brought up to speed when it comes to electric vehicle charging stations, reliable and electric bus transit, ambitious reforesting coordination, advanced environmental landscaping, to include pollinator planting and individual private food plantings, and getting the HOAs out of the way, expanding more bicycle-friendly CA facilities into the rest of the county, and jointly resolving the recycling, composting issue for County Board of Education and CA together. Talking about coordination is the first step. Integrating actions, starting with the proverbial low-hanging fruit, comes next. To make this possible, we all need the building of community awareness and engagement wherever possible. For example, through the CA Village Boards and the high school-centered community activities. Also, the achievement of awareness and climate resilience cannot be achieved without a commitment to climate justice. At this point, I'm not suggesting what to spend and where. I am suggesting an approach, an overarching attitude that should benefit us all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul.
Yes, Ginny?
And then Dick.
Yeah, you may want to check with Delegate Terry Hill.
Yes.
On the rain gardens and, you know, the HOA versus allowing somebody to have a rain garden as a matter
Indeed.
of right, like the legislation that passed that said you have a right to install solar panels, that I think was her legislation. So I think she's looking at also rain gardens and some other environmental issues that an HOA couldn't prohibit. It'd be a matter of right. So.
Dick, and then Nancy, and then Janet and Shar.
This all sounds kind of reasonable. I'm just wondering what you meant by getting HOAs out of the way.
That's it.
Sometimes when people are attempting to grow their pollinator gardens, they appear to be weedy or unattractive. And let's just leave it at that. And some HOAs have been objecting to that kind of planting, perhaps because they're not up to speed or aware of what that's, the benefit that that's doing for, in this case, monarch butterflies and other pollinating bees and things like that. So I think we have to move, and we have to be more concerned about that. Ginny seems to be nodding her head in agreement. We have to catch up to the biology and the conservation.
Nancy.
Are you aware of our Climate Change and Sustainability Advisory Committee?
Yes, I am.
You're not on the committee.
I am not.
Okay, but I think that this is good information, and I don't know who the liaison would be or who you could speak with, but I think that's a great way for you to communicate with them. And I'm huge on communication. I think that's one of the biggest problems that we have, is that we don't do it sufficiently or adequately. So I think a lot of the things that you're bringing up here need to be communicated to
Indeed,
the
what
community.
I'm stressing is communication from the committee and the CA to the county. And
Right.
there are savings involved in both areas if we actually talk to each other.
Good points.
Janet.
I just wanted to mention a company called EcoWorks that has worked with Wild Lake. They work with HOAs, so not to do individual pollinator and rain gardens, but to do HOA-centric ones. And so it's dual fold, and they also do tree replantings. And so they've worked with Wild Lake. They've also come to Long Reach recently, and we'll be working with them as well. But they are specifically targeting HOAs in villages, and I would expect that if things go well in Long Reach, then they will expand to other villages as well. So
I agree, and I'm somewhat
EcoWorks.
aware. EcoWorks, yes. There's another problem. For instance, at my HOA, I'm not allowed to have composting. Well, it kind of makes sense because we don't want to attract raccoons and possums and what have you. At the same time, the county has just started in my area, Swan Point, by Owen Brown, collection of composting material, which is terrific. It should be, but we need to accelerate that kind of activity. There's certain things that HOA is forbidding, which makes sense, but there's a way to respond. But that moves up to the county level, and their ability to expand the composting that should be countywide, and needs to speed up. And we need to talk about that too.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you for coming in tonight and exploring some of these things. This really helps to jog us. And in addition to the committee that Jenny is the liaison for, our Watershed Advisory Committee has been working on these issues for a very long time and working very successfully, I think, with our staff and with the county, so that there's a lot of savings in shared costs and things of that kind. So we are, moving a bit in that direction. Also, are you aware that we've had some very interesting meetings with the county around issues around, for example, transportation? And we've been able to talk with county about having a different kind of mass transit. So instead of simply doing, looking at it, the old school buses from, the 20th century, we're looking at 21st century efforts at getting point-to-point transportation for people that would call and call in and have that kind of system, much like the shuttle if you go to the airport. So there are all kinds of new technologies. People at the county are quite interested, and so we are engaging with them. And I think your point is exactly right, that here in Columbia, we have the density to get that kind of pilot, perhaps, that kind of pilot project off the ground and start moving. Now, we've talked a lot about it, but now it is an emergency situation.
Indeed, thank you for what you're already doing. That was one of the main reasons I came here, and your resolution, unanimous resolution on climate emergency encouraged me to come here. I think you're doing great work.
Thank you.
More of it. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. That is all I have on my list. Is there anyone else? Joel, make sure you sign in. Welcome, Joel.
Got here late. So Joe Hurwitz from Harper's Choice. Want to talk about a number of things. First, I shared with Ginny and the Sustainability Board last month my concern that the recently passed County Forest Conservation Bill continued the exemption for Columbia and apparently Turf Valley because PUDs were exempt. And I'm concerned the way it was drafted might have actually rolled back its application to the most recent large, it's 134-acre annexation from the 90s. I shared with you all a few weeks ago about the e-scooters from the county. I understand the staff's eventually going to bring that to you. I'd like to see how you're going to deal with the issues of your current rules that don't allow you to use motorized vehicles other than bicycles. I'd like to see in the county bill the fact that the operators get your permission before they ask for the permit so that people can know what the operational plan is, because without CA's approval, you really can't go anywhere in the downtown. Also, as I told the council, a number of the villages closest to downtown have architectural control over the siting of anything in the village centers on the village center property, and that should also be part of the plan when they go to them. For the state bills, I'm curious you didn't include HB 21 or SB 88, which deals with abandoned property in possession of a museum as it pertains to the archives. For HB 58 that's on your list, I have a lot of problems with that one. I've been calling Delegate Holmes for several weeks. This afternoon, I actually talked to the fiscal note author. I found it a well-intentioned bill that is poorly drafted and open to abuse by the HOAs. Now, as your memo says, doesn't apply to CA anyway, but does apply to my condo and to smaller HOAs. It actually makes it almost impossible, encouraging more reserve studies, but makes it impossible to actually find a qualified reserve engineer to do the work the way it's written. How much time do I have?
45 seconds.
On environmental things, I'd like to point out that having the water station is objective 1, action step B, that Earth Day would fulfill objective 3 of your environmental sustainability priority. And I guess I've shared before that to fulfill objective 1, step D on fossil fuels, that I'd like to see you make it a requirement that you have electric vehicle and equipment, and if Dennis in the back can't get them, he comes with a purchasing exception if the cost, reliability, longevity, performance, the disposal cost, whatever, doesn't meet the needs, because that way you can make a point that the market and the cost or the technology is not sufficient for the equipment yet, and let people know that that's part of the problem. And lastly, I also shared the problem with the openness of the meeting, and I had shared that with Andy in email last week and at the meeting. So, Andy,
Thank
other
you,
people
Joel.
have concerns.
Jenny, okay, question?
Would you mind sending all that in an email? I know I missed one or two things.
Everything?
Yeah. No, actually, I'm sure when you send it, you'll add more. But, but no, I mean, putting it in writing, if you wouldn't mind, that would be wonderful.
Any other
Or maybe
questions?
not.
Thank you, Joel. Appreciate it. Anyone else? If not, I want to thank, oh, sure, please come up. And if you could sign in.
Where do I sign in?
Joel has it. Welcome.
Hello. I actually didn't really prepare anything for tonight.
Oh,
I
could
just
you,
wanted
could
to
you
come-
just give us your name?
Oh, my name is Maria Christina Comas, so I go by MC.
Sure.
I just wanted to come in tonight because actually my child, who's the majestic little beast that's making a little bit of noise back there, goes to Kitty Mundo. And we heard about potentially some potential issues with it continuing in that center. So I just wanted to kind of say in terms of, I used to actually live in Columbia, and I moved away from Columbia, and I wanted to come back here because that was probably one of the only Spanish immersion schools that I saw. And I actually, as part of me growing up, I had moved away from some of my language. I wanted to have my son go to a school where he could speak that. So I think like that school has been just amazing for him. It's been amazing in terms of the teachers there are so loving. It's amazing that I could have a place that, like I said, they have such a good curriculum, that they teach a green mentality, and that, you know, it's close. I don't have to go to like Montgomery County or, so we actually, again, moved back here in order to go to a school like that. So hopefully we can keep something like that in the community. I think it's a great benefit, especially for such a multicultural community like Columbia, to keep a program like that. And I mean, I just hope something like that doesn't go away.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you very much.
Fine.
All right. Renee, could you? Thank you. All right. Consent agenda. It's all approved. I'll move on to board votes. Eden Brook temporary construction easement. Dennis, is there anything you'd like to add to? Hopefully, all the board members got an opportunity to read.
Yep.
Any questions for Dennis? Sorry.
Yeah, Dennis, I think I emailed you back about that question of landscaping. That where the connection to the path would be, or where that entrance onto Guilford, not the Guilford entrance, the other entrance, the other exit, to cross over to the village center.
Edenbrook.
Yes, thank you. I should know that. It's my community.
You kind of should.
That at the time when these hearings were going on, that was one of the things that folks at the hearings were concerned about, and making sure that, I guess what they called it was robust planting, that it wasn't just going to be a couple of scraggly little bushes, because we've had so many trees. That was a very heavily treed area with great big orchards in the back. And now most of that has come down. So having that tree buffer, and if there is an entry point there, I think it would be really important to make sure that there's some robust landscaping that goes in. So that was just my question, whether we can, in effect, put something in our contract with them that would emphasize that.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
I was hoping for that answer.
I move that we vote in favor of, or that we take a vote on the easement.
Second.
Okay. So Janet has moved and Jenny has seconded that we approve the Edenbrook temporary construction easement as submitted by staff, right?
Yes.
Dick, you have anything to say?
I just want to make sure that the robust landscaping
Right.
piece gets
It's
included in that.
in the motion.
So that, if I could, there's two temporary easements. There's also a permanent easement for the stormwater utility. So that
All
would-
the easements.
All the easements.
All right. And you'll include the
Robust.
Robust. Any
Could I
further?
get in the queue, please?
Alan, yes?
Yeah, Dennis, I'm looking at the resolution, and maybe I'm looking at the wrong one. Your memo talks about the development becoming part of CA assessment, but there's nothing in the be it resolved that says that. How are we protected that he's actually going to do that?
Alan, it says here, subject to staff final review, subjecting the property to CA lien and annexation to the village of King's Contrivance.
Right.
That's in the very beginning paragraph authorizing the easement. Does that meet your concern?
Thank you. I see it now. I was looking at, I just thought that was boilerplate. I was looking at the 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
No, that's an important part of the easement. Any other discussion?
Thank you.
If not, I will call the question. All those in favor of the motion to approve the Edenbrook temporary easement? Alan?
Aye.
Unanimous.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, next up, we have the CA.
So there are two temporary easements, and there's the one permanent.
Oh.
So when you call the question for the two temporary,
all right.
But then are you in favor of the permanent easement as well for
I
the
thought we did
underground
all of them.
storm?
I thought we did all
We
three
did
of
all
them.
of them in that motion.
How do you?
I'm not going to fight you on it.
You're right.
No.
I mean, it
All
said
three.
Thank you,
yes.
Janice. Thank you for
Thank you,
your
Dennis.
efforts. I really
All right.
appreciate
What
it.
Janet's
Let's
motion
move
was.
on. Next up, we have the proposed policy on community grants, and so if Michelle would be willing to come up. Once again, I hope everyone got a chance to read it. Any questions? Shari, and then Dick, and then, all right, I got to read this. Shari, Dick, and Ginny. Shari, you're first.
Okay. All right, so I guess I was a little confused about the middle section here on this draft. So there are three categories.
Correct.
That are being, okay. So the first one is $100,000 and over would come to the board. Anything of that amount would come to the board, correct?
Yes, and that's typically done in the budget, such as the Festival of Arts, Inner Arbor Trusts, past year's Downtown Columbia Partnership.
Okay. And then the third one talks about one-time grants not to exceed $25,000. And who would be doing that? That's something that the president, I'm just trying to understand what this is saying. The president and the director of community services would be looking at those smaller grants?
Correct.
Okay, so the Community Foundation of Howard County would be doing what kind of grants? That's the third piece.
It's in the second bullet. CA would provide a grant of, let's say, $100,000 to the Columbia Foundation, and that also is in the budget. And then the foundation will provide mini grants in the areas arts and cultural, human services, education, and environment that promote the social welfare of Columbia.
All right, so those mini grants would be under 25,000?
Right.
Yes.
Okay, so that's what I was thinking of, a grant of no more than 100,000 to the Community Foundation of Howard County. I'm trying to get some sense of what the parameters would be, because right now, it doesn't look like there is anything that says what this pot would be year to year. So the other thing that struck me is by the end of the quarter, the president reports to the CA board grants that were made. Because later on, it says specific times. The president makes final determinations between June and August. So my suggestion would be to follow that by saying in September, the president reports to the CA board all grants up to $25,000. In other words, that would be, the president would be reporting back to the board what grants would fall into that category. And I think what that would do, if we make that change, it would help staff and board to be able to put this on a timeline. So we would know where that report is going to come. It's always going to come in September. We're going to know as of that point, before funds are dispersed, what those amounts are. We can lock it into our calendar and we know when it's going to be.
So here you correct what you're saying is, like add a sentence which basically says, President reports to the board in September on the grants, right?
Well, this says quarterly, so.
Well, I thought she was talking about the next to last paragraph.
Right, because
Right,
it
that's
says
what I
here,
thought. Right.
what it implies is that this is a once-a-year report. A determination is made, and it's a once-a-year report, unless I'm not reading that correctly.
That's why I wanted to just make sure that that's what you were proposing.
I think if it's going to be a once-a-year report, and it's going to be determined between June and August, then a report needs to be made. My only other question, I guess this is for Susan, is do funds have to be spent at the end of August? Is there any reason why funds would be dispensed at the end of August?
No.
All right, so that report could be made in
That's
September.
that's why it was written at the end of the quarter. So if a grant is given out in October, then at the end of the second quarter, a report will be made to the board. So it's not only a one-time-a-year grant. Like, it's not only going to happen in June through August, let's say.
All right, so this is not going to be a determined, it used to be that that it was determined sort of once a year to give out grants.
No.
That's not the case?
Typically, the grants are given out during the summer. However, if funds are left over, then, and if an emergency comes up in the community, then a grant would be provided. So that may not happen in August, may happen in October or September or another time.
How often does that happen?
I have you.
Twice in 10 years.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, twice in 10 years you've run out of money?
No.
Oh.
There was leftover money.
Okay, that's.
And
All right.
I'll put you on the list. Okay.
So we could put September or just leave it in the quarter?
In September, the president reports to the CA board, and if you want to have something there for an emergency grants will be reported to the board as dispersed or as they come up, or some, in other words, that's the exception. What
I
I'm
would
hearing.
like to reserve money for every quarter, because I don't like the whole, at the end of just 3 months, all the money's gone and no one can apply for a grant for another year.
right.
I would rather see that we set aside money for each quarter, and that if someone doesn't get one this quarter, they can reapply next quarter, and there's going to be another allocated amount. That's how I would prefer to see it. But.
Okay, so,
By the way, I think I was the next on the
okay,
list.
Yeah,
sorry.
sorry, Dick.
All right, Dick's next, then Ginny, then Janet, Renee, Nancy, Rafia. I got a list.
And then Alan.
And Alan. Oh, Alan too. Okay. All right, Dick.
I've got a big problem with this. I think it's a good idea to have some money set aside So, because we can't anticipate that, when we're doing the budget, just who might need the money at a particular time. If my village, for example, the high school comes to us looking for money for after prom or something like that, and we have money set in the budget for these things as they come up, and that's good. That way we can respond quickly to situations that we weren't aware of when the budget was being set. But I don't like, there's no cap on this. It says these have to be under $25,000, but you could be giving out hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of grants, all under $25,000. So I think we need to put some kind of a budget figure in here that we can put in, say, X number of dollars that we can allocate for emergency grants or special grants. For example, we had the flood in Ellicott City. Maybe that would be something where we would have wanted to put some money into, something to help them out during a crisis. So we should have money available standing by. But I want to put some kind of a cap on it so Susan can put a budget together without this, this amorphous number.
Susan has an answer for you.
So that's the point of the opening sentence in paragraph 2, that the CA board approves grant amounts during the budget process that would fall into those 3 categories. So the board would approve each budget year what that
Okay.
amount would be.
So
I don't think.
there would be a cap then on this program.
And I think it makes more sense to cap it with each budget rather than in the policy itself, personally.
Okay, well, I can see that. So I just don't want this to be an open-ended
Right. It can't be
slush
because
fund.
you still have to approve the
Good.
budget. right?
Good. Now, the other thing I'm concerned about is why we are just giving the president this carte blanche to give out grants without telling the board in advance. We have 2 meetings a month. We can, if there is a crisis that comes up, an emergency where a good cause needs some cash right away, I think this should be approved by the board. I don't see how this should be a separate category. We already have the fund, which is taking care of a lot of these local groups that have needs. And so I would rather see this simply being an emergency fund where the board, where you guys come to the board saying we got this particular problem and we recommend this, this be spent. And I think you would generally get the approval of the board for something like that. So anyway, that's my sense of this thing.
Jenny?
Yeah, okay, just a couple of quick questions in terms of really understanding what's happening here. It says three categories, 3 buckets of money, right? I want to make sure I understand them because it almost reads like in the last 2 paragraphs there may be a 4th bucket of money. So one is this big grant, in excess of $100,000, that the board will approve line items in the budget. You get specifically what it is, like the Inner Arbor, Columbia Festival, whatever, and it'll have an amount attached to it, and we will say yes or no, correct? You will be submitting that, right?
No, it's going, I'm sorry.
That's bucket 1, correct? Category 1.
Yes, the board approves bucket
The staff will
1.
submit category 1 in the budget that'll say specifically, we're recommending 100,000, I'm just making this up, for Columbia Arts, or the Festival of the Arts. Another 100,000 for Inner Arbor, and right? That's category 1.
Yes.
Okay. Category, and the board will say yes or no. Okay, that's clear as, really clear. Okay. Category 2, the idea was to give to the Columbia Foundation of Howard County X amount of money, and we were sort of talking about 100,000. At first, I was thinking we should really put in here what it is, but I agree with what Susan's saying. We, again, will control that in the budget. I think we've all sort of talked about 100,000 in the budget, and I have to look. There must be something in the budget now, or it's not there because we haven't. It's 100,000.
Yeah.
Okay. So the board, again, staff will recommend the board will agree or disagree, increase, decrease, or eliminate it. That's category 2. There's only a couple of things about this real quick. One, I thought we have a system here where then Columbia Foundation will have a member of the CA staff serving on it, and I think they agreed you'd be that person. So if that's a condition we want, it's not here. That's one. 2,
It's a condition that the board wants. I said I was.
no, the
going to
board,
do
the
that.
board.
No, the board did say that we wanted you to be on the
So,
committee.
so that needs to be added to this policy, is what I'm saying. Yeah,
No, I just would get in the queue of that.
huh? What?
I don't know that I guess, can you control who gets on the board? On the Columbia Fund, on the.
Well, it's not really on the board, I'm sorry. It's on the grant committee that we would have a member,
Okay,
We can
right?
ask.
we can ask.
We can
But
ask.
we can ask, and then we can give them the money or not give them the money.
Right.
So we're
So
just letting them know that if they want the money, it would be a very good idea to have Michelle on their grant
Well,
committee.
So the point that I'm making
So
is,
Jen-
if that's
Jenny finish.
part of our, yeah, I've got about 3 more questions. The point I'm making is, if that's part of what we want, it should be in our policy, because there's board turnover, nobody will know what we wanted when we approved this, so that needs to be an amendment there, okay? The next thing, and this will be controversial, so my colleagues may not agree with me on this, we're already giving quite a bit of money to the arts in bucket 1. How about we just limit this to human services and environment, maybe education, but there's also a lot of money that's coming from Horizon and other sources for education. Human services and environment are 2 areas that really struggle to get money. What if we considered another amendment that would delete arts and culture, education, and just leave human services and the environment? Okay, so that's it for bucket 2, to give us possibly 2 amendments. Bucket 3, I'm ambivalent, but I can see, I think, the need for the president, CEO, consulting with the director of community services, having a small pot of money available for an emergency, because the board doesn't meet that, maybe isn't going to meet to make the decision. Like, for example, last year, I think it was $50,000 for the farm. They had to buy that farm. There's no way, we would have gotten together. I guess we could have called an emergency meeting or something. But it's a small amount of money, and what this is saying is, but the president has to report by a certain date, and we've got time specific on that. Here's where I'm having, so I'm sort of like, that's probably, it's okay. But here's where I'm having a problem with the wording. To me, it was, you look at not to exceed 25,000, okay? But when you read it, are we sure it's a one-time grant to one organization, and it's not maybe a one-time grant to one organization, but there's also other organizations that could get it as well when you read the wording here. Community grants, Y&S, dispersed as individual one-time grants not to community organizations. So I think we've got to be very clear. What we're talking about is one pot of money, and that pot of money will, again, be recommended by staff, but approved or not by the board. And I think this year, I assume you're putting in you have 25,000 in the budget this year for that? I assume.
No. 60,000 for the,
For this
60,000.
third pot, huh?
The third part is 60,000, I just looked at the number.
It was 60,000.
Yeah.
Okay. So is it one
The
organization?
individual grant can't be over 25.
What?
The individual grant can't be over 25. There could be multiple grants to multiple organizations.
Okay, well, as long as we understand what it is, thought it was going to be one crisis thing where the president had to respond quickly, and it could be up to 25,000 or up to 50 or something like that for one thing. So what we're really saying is it's 60, but not 25 can't exceed for one organization. That's what we're really saying. And the amount of money is whatever we decide to approve in the budget. Okay, that is really clear with a few amendments, 1, 2, and 3 buckets. it's like, what is the rest of this, which almost in my mind goes back to the old process we were using. What is all this about? It almost sounds like we have a fourth pot of money.
Anything else, Jim?
That's it. I want to make clear that there is no fourth other bucket
This
here
part, no.
with the wording in these last two paragraphs.
Janet?
So just to Dick's earlier point, it does say in the third bullet too, a lump sum community grants amount to be dispensed. So that to me just says that we will decide on an amount that we would include in the budget, and it wouldn't exceed, all of the grants together wouldn't exceed that amount. So that's one. But as I mentioned, I would prefer to see there to be some money available throughout the year and not have it be dried up within a quarter or two. Because, we've had people come for various things toward the end of the year and they're unable to get grants. But I would also actually be in favor of lowering the maximum amount. I mean, I think the 50,000 for the farm was sort of a one-off. That was
It
an
was a
unusual
one-off, right.
situation. I think a lot of people are looking for $5,000 or $10,000, and so I would rather see us sort of spread the wealth to multiple organizations that may need some funding than do two large grants to two organizations and then not have anything left over. So. And I agree, I think these last two paragraphs were from the old, and they just weren't taken out.
Is that a mistake, or the last two paragraphs?
That's, the last two paragraphs, actually the process, they are explaining how the president and the staff will be administering the third part. That's all it is. It's just a procedure you guys have explained. It's not a fourth different grant.
Renee?
I would like to piggyback on what Janet said. I think that the limit of $25,000 is awfully high. And I think that we have to be judicious in how we hand out this money. If I just use the theory that the average lien holder here is paying $1,200 a year, that means that we're spending 21 homes' money with that 25,000, with that amount of money, and it's just way too much. We have to be a little bit judicious in how we spend.
Nancy?
I believe it is written, I don't have it in front of me because I'm busy trying to take notes, that it is not to exceed 25,000 for one grant. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's not 25,000 to be given out. It's not to exceed 25,000.
That is correct.
And if there is a special situation such as the farm, then they would come to us and the board would say yay or nay. I'm not trying to explain what you're doing. I just think that there's people's heads interpret in their own ways, and then that's how we get everything all messed up. So there could be 5 grants in that $25,000. I agree that it should not all be gone in the first quarter. I think it needs to be, some needs to be held in reserve, but there's a total of 60,000, right? That's going to be given out as grants. So whether they do it at $20,000 or whatever they choose to do, but at the same time, we also have a policy where they can do what they want with a certain amount up to, is it 50,000 or 75? Did we go to 75 or did we go to 50?
It's 60 in the budget.
No, not in this
You're doing,
situation. That's a
That's a little
different,
different. That's a totally different.
okay, so I won't confuse the two.
Let us not confuse the board.
Okay, all right, then we'll just leave it at that. I don't think we should be called in for special meetings. I think between Milton and our Community Services Director, I think they're quite capable of doing this. They've been doing it, and I don't think we need to put our fingers in that pot. But I think that we do need to be informed. I'm really big on being informed, because when people in the community come up and say, oh, this happened or this didn't happen, and I'm sitting there like a deer in the headlights thinking I have no idea what you're talking about, then it's embarrassing. Well, I think that's it.
Next is Rafia.
Thanks. I'm looking at the FY. When I read the policy, I went back to the budget document and looked at the number. So basically, the Columbia Festival of the Arts we have shown as $100,000. So depending on if we approve, then it will be 100,000 being approved. The community foundation, 100,000, which they have been administering for over the years. And then Inner Arbor Trust is 183,000. In the budget for FY21, the total is 443,000. So then the difference between those two is the 60,000, which will be administered by the president and the staff. And the last time, and we have all the confusion, that's why we said, why don't we have a policy? Because we don't want to get involved in actually managing or administering that.
Right.
Rather give them the, guidelines that, like, for example, not to exceed 25,000, not to give to religious organizations, et cetera, et cetera. And the fourth paragraph, which Jenny was referring, is basically, they're explaining how they would be doing. And as far as the procedure, they're saying they are basically they will make it generally available from March to June, so that there has to be a deadline for application and things like that. And this is not just for the emergency money, but I'm assuming the organization which needs to have, otherwise CA, how would they know, are we telling them in the policy that no, only do 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, or 1/4, 1/4 in each quarter? Or we are just giving them, saying that, they have to use their judgment, and it's the grants, and let the president and the staff decide. And we are giving the general guidelines, not to exceed 25,000 is one of them. But I do have a question of Susan. Why in FY21 budget, I'm looking the grant request for 443,000, but in FY22 it's only 169,000. Is there any particular reason?
I think the festival is not in there for the next year. And Inner Arbor.
Nor is the trust.
Right.
Okay, so both of them are not.
Right.
They're
The board.
assuming
The festival
merger.
is, right?
The merger's going on. So
Why?
I don't recall. I'd have to look that up, but
Okay.
I know what was pending with
Just-
those was.
No, that's an important question.
So in
So
fiscal year
the
22.
reason was that some of these grants were not approved in the October when the board voted on whether to include them or not, because of the potential consolidation or merger of the arts organizations in Columbia. So that was, the board voted on that in October to not include all of those for next year. So
Thank
you can
you.
revisit that in the 22 process.
Thank you. So next year it's 69,000 will be the third part then. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Alan is next. And then I do have Shari and Lynn. And
Thank you.
Alan.
Yeah, so my suggestion to you is to reorganize those last two paragraphs or retitle them so it's clear what they are, that they are, I agree, they are ways to administer bucket 3, but that needs to be clear. Michelle, if you had your druthers, if you were to create this without the board's input, would bucket 3 exist?
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure, because I guess I know Dick, you and I are very different on this. My total preference would be that bucket 2 disappears and we administer it all, but I get that people like that they are professionals and know how to do this. My preference is that we would administer it since it's our residents' money. But that's just me. I want to make it clear, though, to people that in bucket 1, and I'm in favor of this, but I just want to make it clear, bucket 1 does not say that that category is only for amounts over 100,000. It just says they are typically that. We could decide as a board that we want to have a board-directed grant of $2,583 to something. So I like that. I wouldn't want to change that, but I just don't want to have people fooled into thinking that that's only for the largest amounts. I'm open to hearing more about it, and I get your reasons to remove arts and culture and education, but I'm not convinced yet. So I'd want us to have some more discussion about why we'd want to limit the categories that we would allow our residents' money to be given away by the foundation. I also want, in terms of the third bucket, I want to be clear. There's no mention of the word emergency as far as I can read it in the policy. Those are not intended for, as I read it, for emergency grants. It's intended for grants that are supportive of our strategic plan and our ongoing activities. So emergencies may happen, but this is not, bucket 3 was not an emergency fund. And people have talked about, more than one person has talked about it that way, and I want to make sure that we're clear that it's not that. I'm supportive of the notion that we not give it all away in the first 2 months and then have nothing happen, have nothing available. I'm a little concerned about people having to or being able to reapply quarter by quarter by quarter by quarter. That feels like a lot for the staff to administer. I would like, maybe it's twice a year or something. I would like to see it some more spread out, but maybe it's more twice a year. And I think the limit of 25,000 to me is reasonable, as long as the staff is hearing that we are, as a board, are generally not in favor of two $25,000 grants and a $10,000 grant. We'd like it to be lots of smaller grants to spread the money around. And if it's 25, somebody would have to really qualify heavily for a 25,000 to get to that amount. That's a cap, not a goal. And I'm done.
Lynn, and then I'm gonna.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you said, Alan. Again, this is a small part of what we do. And, the first part is really part of our mission. These are things that we've supported generally, and that other groups would not support in the same way. When you get to bucket 3, it says supportive of, again, CA strategic plan and ongoing initiatives. That's very different than the emergency idea. Emergency funds would much more appropriately be done by the Columbia Foundation, by other organizations that give grants for those, specifically for those things. The last thing I think the board should be getting involved in would be a series of smaller, random grants. They should be targeted, they should be thoughtful, and they should be on mission. Again, we are not principally a grant-making organization. This is an adjunct, activity.
Okay, we are over time. I'm going to continue this discussion if the board wants to continue, but we're going to have to kind of wrap it up. So, Shari, Nancy, Dick. So, can you kind of be quick? Shari.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing is that there is some confusion and disagreement about bucket 2 and bucket 3. We have two different ideas. So what I'm hearing is that there's the idea that we have a smaller amount in bucket 3, which can be dispersed on an emergency basis in response to the needs of the community. And then the opposing idea is that this sort of gives carte blanche to the president to disperse without the necessity of any emergency. The other thing that struck me is that there's nothing in here that clearly says, and maybe the language has to be worked on, that the board has a monitoring function. That's what created this whole thing, that the board did not know what monies were being dispersed for what, other than the ones over, 100,000 and over. But there was a whole lot of money that was being dispersed that we didn't know anything about. So that was my point about having once a year, having something on the board agenda that says this is what it looks like. We're reporting out that this is what it's going to be before the funds are dispersed. So in case there's any issue that arises, we have an opportunity to give some feedback to the organization. And the other thing that struck me is that there's a big difference between $25,000 and $100,000. And so there is a big gray area now with the Community Foundation. There's nothing that says that the Community Foundation that would be getting a big chunk of money has to disperse that out to other organizations. What if somebody creates a grant for $95,000? It doesn't come to the board, and we don't necessarily get any feedback on that. and that would be just one organization. So I think there are some pieces here that have to be tightened up a little bit to answer these questions that still remain.
Nancy and Dick, try
When
to
are we going to
do it
vote
quick.
on this? I mean, is it on the schedule?
Well, I can
for-
tell you right now, it's going to be February, because obviously you have a lot of comments, and Michelle has to
amendments.
take this all back and.
Yeah.
But we do. I mean, there are a number of things that we could then add to what the policy that we're going to hand to the foundation and how we want it dispersed. So we could say nothing to exceed $25,000 or $10,000 or whatever it is. But on the other hand, I think we need to also allow them to do their job.
Could I make a suggestion on this? I agree with you, we can't vote right now, but we need to really prepare our own amendments that we want to this, and Michelle helping us with any clarifications that we've asked for, giving us another draft if that'll work for you, and with Susan. And then we must prepare amendments in advance of the next meeting so that colleagues have a chance to look at those amendments, and then we should have a shorter discussion point and be able to vote at the next meeting.
Okay,
Otherwise,
but
this will
Nancy,
go on.
I just wanted to add one more thing. I don't agree with what you said about eliminating the arts. The arts festival is one thing, but I don't think that we should then cut out all the other arts groups in Columbia.
All right, Dick is the last one, then we're going to wrap this up.
I'll make this
Okay.
real quick. Just to get into the philosophy of why we had the three buckets. In the past, we didn't really have a strategy. Money was being given to a lot of different organizations. There was no real way of telling why we were giving money to who we were giving and how much. And the idea was that there are some big organizations that we are partnering with, and that's kind of bucket one. These are organizations that we share a purpose with, and we want to support them. And these are the big items, and they generally are 100,000 plus. They could be less, but that's just a range. The second thing is there are a lot of things in this community that help the community that we don't want to see avoided, and we don't also want to get into the weeds and have us all having meetings about, do we give $5,000 to these people or $10,000 to these people? Here's an organization, a professional organization, that has people on board who check out these organizations and then follow up to make sure things are going well. They're experts, and this is what they do for a living. And we don't want to just let them give our money away, but what we want them to do is have someone who understands what we're all about, what our strategic interests are, sitting on their grant board to make sure that the money we give them suits our purposes and as the strategy. And Michelle, I trust Michelle completely to represent us in that capacity. Bucket 3 is something that seems to be a remnant of the old days when the staff was just arbitrarily giving money away, or with the board jumping in from time to time. And we want to avoid that. We don't want to get all bickering about somebody's Boy Scout troop getting money or somebody else's thing doing something or whatever. Let's leave that to the experts. But I do think that there are things that come up during the year, and I said emergencies, but this might be opportunities. The farm was a perfect example. When we were making when we were writing the budget, we didn't know that this chance would come up where $50,000 would have a really good purpose. And so I do think we should have a bucket that's available for things that come up in the course of the year, or when there is a legitimate emergency. And how we control that, I think we need to, I don't like the idea of two people on the staff just arbitrarily making those decisions without the board being aware at least of what they are. So that's all I have to say.
All right, Rafi, real
I
quick.
will try to make it quick. We all have discussed, we have we provided these direction to the staff to come up with the policy. I remember this discussion very thoroughly, and we asked them to exactly come up with what they have came up with. And for us to sit down and say, well, no, we want to change this, now we want to change that, and push it next month, that's okay. But I can tell you there's a couple of things I'm listening, and it's kind of annoying, is that, we told them that we wanted the staff to go ahead and administer it. We asked ourselves that we want to have a quarterly report. However, we didn't want it to wait till the end. The staff provided that in the policy, which says that at the end of the quarter, the president reports to the CA board. In the president's report, grants that were made in that particular quarter. And as far as the old days, actually all of the money used to be approved only in the budget by the board. Staff didn't used to do that. That has come up at a much later date. It was not done at that time. Everything was on the grant page, and the board has approved that. As far as being concerned about whether the foundation going to go ahead and give 99 or 95,000 to somebody else, I don't think so, because there are specific requirements. When we have given them the money, we say it should be distributed in the area of arts and culture and human services, education, environment, et cetera, and we have provided them some guidelines. It has to be Columbia-based organization. It cannot be at the Howard County, et cetera. So those things are there. And I just think that, a policy should be just the guidelines where we feel comfortable, yes, what's happening. We are approving the entire money, number one. The board here is approving, when we are approving the 483,000 or whatever that is, that we know that there will never be a penny more than that being dispersed by the staff. We have said that there are 3 different ways we will disperse the money. And they are very clearly written here. And this was exactly the direction we provided to the staff. So I think that, we can have another meeting, another 2 hours of discussion, and then still we will not be satisfied. So my recommendation will be, with a couple of things we have given them, go ahead and say that there should be adjustment made and approve the policy.
Okay, so here's what's happening. We will put this on the February meeting agenda for a vote, because we have talked about this for like 3 meetings now. If you have any suggestions you want, send them to Michelle by January 31st. Close of business January 31st. If it doesn't get to Michelle by January 31st, then you don't have any suggestions.
Excuse me, Andy, that's not very much time. Why are you saying the 31st? It's the 23rd. People have things to do. Ginny was talking about writing out amendments so that people can think through
So
what
do
is the most important
what do you think
thing
is an
here.
agenda? Because I do not want to wait until the 23rd. Okay.
When is our next meeting?
The 23rd.
2 days.
The next meeting is the 23rd. The next work session, not the 23rd.
27th.
27th. The next work session is the
13th.
Right, 13.
Right.
Okay, so when
So
we
you
have
want
a
it by the
topic,
13th?
when we have a topic where there are differences of opinion, and I think that's what we're hearing, there are some very basic differences of opinion. We need another discussion. And pushing it to a vote in a work session arbitrarily to push it through doesn't make a whole lot of sense until the board really has some consensus.
One quick thing, we're missing here tonight a major player, Milton. My understanding from Milton on the third bucket that he's expressed was that that would be something that it would be somewhat where it was, it's not an ongoing organization, is what I heard him say. It would be a startup or something like that, a new thing. Not like something that's been in existence for 10 years and wants $5,000 or 10 grand. That's what Community Foundation is all about, or Horizon or others. So he was seeing it as something special that really made sense. And I thought the 25 or 50 would do it, frankly. I guess we got 60 in the budget. So that's important to hear what his intention was, because it's not spelt out in what we have. And I thought the first step might be that, based on what we've said, any technical corrections to the draft would be done by Michelle quickly, sent back to us, and we would react to that with preparing our amendments from that. But keep in mind what at least some of us heard Milton say was his intention for the third bucket. Because otherwise, you're going to confuse people with coming in to the Columbia Foundation for 5 or 10 grand. You name the organizations, there's 50, 60 of them, and then also coming to us, and that defeats the whole purpose of, are we developing a different system with bucket 1, 2, and 3? And that's really an important part of what we're doing, and I think it's gotten a little confusing on bucket 2 and 3.
I have heard Milton say that, and frankly, I disagree with Milton.
Okay.
I don't care if we continually give to some of the same organizations if they demonstrate a need. And I think that we need many of these organizations, and if we don't take responsibility for helping to maintain and care for them, then they may very well disappear. So I don't think just because Milton, and no disrespect to Milton, but just because Milton has his theory about it, mine may not agree with it. So it really is the consensus that the board comes up with that really is going to make that is what matters.
Would it be possible to do a few straw votes on some of these topics so that if like only one person cares about it, we can at least get rid of that one from the list?
Sure, we can do that.
So I think, it would be 1, removing arts and culture, 2,
All right,
Oh,
so
wait a minute. Bucket 1, we could probably vote and get passed, what?
no, we're not
Yeah,
gonna,
I'm not-
we're gonna do straw.
what I'm
votes.
trying to understand is in
Yeah.
terms of amendments,
Right.
there's no point in
Yes.
spending a lot of time
Right.
creating
Okay,
amendments
good
that
point.
no one's supporting except you.
All right, well, the first one I had was having a seat on the grant committee of the Columbia Foundation, guaranteeing CA a seat, which could be staff, it could be board, whatever, on the grant committee, not on the big board. That was an amendment to the second, quote, bucket. So how do you all feel about that?
Everybody in favor? It's fine.
Yeah, all right.
Makes
I'll take
sense.
a straw vote, just a second, let me write this down, because I gotta,
What's the vote?
oh, wait, let me write it down. Yeah.
Actually, I didn't get a
This takes
second.
time, this takes
I
time.
didn't get a
No,
second.
this is just a straw vote, this is not
Oh,
some,
This is not a vote.
right, all right, so it's,
This is a sense of the meeting.
Where we're headed, direction.
Stipulating that CA is represented on the subcommittee that deals with grants.
okay, so what Jenny is proposing, was we're going to take a straw vote on, is adding a requirement for a rep from CA on the grant committee, grant review committee.
Yeah.
All right, all you want to do is just, all those in favor. I'm just going to,
Aye.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
And
7,
Alan.
7, and yes, and all those opposed. I'll oppose. All
I'm
those,
indifferent.
and you're going
I'm indifferent.
indifferent. All right,
Is that an aye or
all
an A
right.
for abstain?
All right, the next one was removing arts and culture.
What was the final on that, Andy?
712.
Thank you.
All right, how about removing arts and culture? Anyone in favor?
I'm not opposed.
Or anyone opposed?
Yes.
1, 2, 3, 5, 6.
Those who have no opinion.
Good. No art.
No
Abstain.
opinion.
How about
2.
abstain?
All right,
Okay.
1 abstain.
all right, so that fails.
Okay, and how about having money available quarterly?
Okay, having money available quarterly.
I'll go for that.
Wait a minute, give me a chance, money.
That's, which bucket? All of them?
No,
Bucket 3.
bullet number 3,
Three,
just
okay.
having the
The 60
money
grand.
released throughout the year.
Well, I think you have to specify that it's bucket.
Right, she said bucket
Bucket
3.
three.
That's
She
what I
said
just said.
bucket 3.
Oh, okay.
Right.
But
Sorry,
what
I didn't
happens
hear
if
that.
you've got the situation of the farm for 50,000?
Nope.
No,
I
we're
know,
not.
that's,
No.
Okay,
that's,
but
this
I mean,
is,
you can't have
look,
any more money
look,
available.
we're taking a straw vote, and then the question is, should the money be available quarterly for bucket 3? All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 3. All those opposed?
I was like,
1,
come
2,
on,
3,
guys.
4, 5, 6.
Okay, so we lose.
All those abstaining? Alan?
I'm not convinced quarterly is correct, but I would like to see it spread out a little bit more through the year.
Okay. All right, so the answer to that is
Anyway,
no.
though.
Anything else? Any other straw votes?
Can we-
Shari?
Oh, sorry.
Shari had one.
Can we just test about whether bucket 3 is emergency?
Oh, that's a
Or-
good one. Emergency, or as it's written, supportive of CA strategic plan. So,
Can I amend what you're saying, that it would be for not ongoing I'm just thinking what Milton would say, not ongoing organizations, but startups.
I think that's a different question.
Okay, okay.
This is a one-time emergency grant. Is bucket 3.
okay, so the question is, do you want to make bucket 3 emergency only? Right? All right, straw vote. All those in favor?
I wouldn't say only. The
No,
other
not
thing
That's-
that comes up, there are emergencies and there are opportunities.
Then
No,
you'd
no,
be
no.
against making it
Then
emergency
you'd be
only.
against what Shari said was emergency only.
Let's get that.
Because you can do emergency under our current grants. I mean,
Exactly.
but she's saying, no, we're going to just make it emergency only. All right. So I'll vote. All those in favor of that? I have one. All those opposed?
Opposed?
Okay, so that failed. Anything else?
Abstentions?
No, there's 10, there's one
I
9.
abstained.
You abstained.
You didn't count right.
Every idea.
All right. All right. Any others?
I just have a question.
Sure.
Ginny had one.
Have we been giving $100,000 to the Columbia Foundation for the past how many years?
As long as I remember.
Yeah, actually more than that.
100 to 120.
Yeah.
Okay, so why are we limited to 100,000 this year?
No, we're not.
Not, that's the board's decision.
That'll be a budget decision.
So we talked.
Because the budget is already put together with that
We,
number.
we talked
Okay.
in October, and
That was the amount.
that was
in
the
October.
amount we said put in the budget.
Okay.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
our-
I
we
would
did.
like to encourage my colleagues to not overthink this for the next vote, so that if you can please remember how you voted tonight, and not make all of these another point of discussion at the next meeting, it would be most appreciated.
Second.
Agreed.
In
All right, as far
favor?
as I hear,
Aye.
that's it.
Is that it?
Wait a minute, didn't Ginny have another one?
No, Ginny said she was done.
Nope, she's done.
Well, if you remind me what it was, but
It was the one that somebody said was, which I agreed was a separate, you were trying to amend the last one, and I think, Shari, you said, no, that's a separate issue, which I agree was a,
Oh, ongoing organizations versus one-time.
that's it, yeah, the ongoing organization.
what Milton was saying is that his idea of that bucket, and he said it in our meetings, was
Right.
that it would
I
be
agree.
only to organizations that are going, starting up, not to
So what's your
ongoing
proposal?
organizations.
No,
Because
No,
that
so-
would be the
What's
Columbia
your
Foundation
proposal?
money. What?
The
What
policy
is
says
your proposal?
one-time grants to
Well, I think the way it
organizations.
reads right now, it's really up to the president, CEO, and Michelle as to how they're going to grant that money, the way it reads right now. And whatever we put in the budget is our decision. We're putting 60 this year, and they're going to decide how to spend it and tell us about
Okay,
it, right?
then I have one. I would like to see, and it doesn't have to be a lot, I would like to see staff promulgate a set of criteria that the board would agree on. It doesn't have to be very specific, but for example, I would not, personally, would not agree to a set of criteria that said these bucket 3 grants will only be used for startups. I think it might be nice to use them for some startups, but I don't want to just limit it to that.
Right.
It doesn't say it, but it doesn't say not that. So we don't know what criteria the staff is going to use to make. So I think it'd be us doing our due diligence to know at least what the general, and approve the general parameters that the staff will use to make their decisions.
Could you do that, Michelle?
There's an application that organizations fill out, and if that application meets and includes CA's strategic plan and ongoing initiatives, And that is the criteria. We look at that application and does it meet the criteria of the strategic plan and ongoing initiatives.
That sounds good.
Well, but Michelle, Milton has been clear on more than one occasion that he would prefer to just make these grants to startups. And that's not part of the application doesn't say only apply if you're a startup. So
Alan,
that would be an additional criteria that he would be applying.
are you suggesting that we specifically call out that this would be in support of both one-time and potentially ongoing?
I'm suggesting that we ought to know know and approve what criteria the staff is using to make their selections. I don't want a criteria like that to be a hidden criteria that's not on the application. So we can say, yes, we like the application, it asks all the right questions, and then people get disapproved because they're whatever, and we don't know why that is.
They would have to put the criteria on the application, and when they advertise, et cetera, it would be on there.
Alan, it says in that particular
otherwise you
paragraph
get every
that
Tom,
the,
Dick, and Harry again.
the president and the community services director, et cetera, made available by each organization. So basically, they're saying it depends on the services regarding the types of services they're made available by each organization applying for a grant and the purpose for which the grant is requested. So it's pretty broad. It's very broad. And it should be.
What?
Okay, sorry, let's get her going.
All right, so there still is nothing that says that the board will know any of this. So that's another point here. Where is the reporting? When does the board find out anything?
That's a
Quarterly,
straw
after it's
vote.
done.
Straw vote on whether we have criteria or not.
Quarterly reporting requirement.
All right, let's try it.
And Michelle could provide that criteria.
Well, Michelle already told you what the criteria is.
Yeah.
What they're going to use is, does it meet the strategic plan and ongoing initiatives, correct? That is the criteria.
Right,
That's good enough for me.
yeah, so we've got that, okay. But the
Michelle,
So
are
then
you
can we vote on
stipulating?
quarterly reporting?
Michelle?
You don't want quarterly reporting? You do want quarterly reporting?
It is, the question
Michelle, are you
is,
stipulating?
question is whether the reporting will occur before monies are dispersed or whether, so that the board will know something, or whether the reporting will be after.
It's after, according to the policy.
Right.
It's a quarterly report.
Well, I'm asking the board if that's what the board wants, because this whole thing came about because the board did not know until after the fact. So that was the dividing point that came up in our discussion several times. So do you put it up front, or does it follow on after the fact? And if it's after the fact, then any feedback that the board has is moot.
Except they better not do it again.
Yeah, if we get the board, if we have to then get a list of proposed grants first, that involves the board directly in deciding, we get into the weeds on this. I think it's much more important to trust the process.
comment on this.
We get a report so we know who got the money. If we have a problem, we can discuss it afterwards so it doesn't happen again. But again, I don't know, have we had problems with who got the money before?
Well, part of it
I'd like to get in the queue on that.
We didn't know.
Yeah.
All right, Ginny.
Last comment. What actually happened last year, I think, was the shock that a lot of organizations were under the impression that they could apply, and they did, and expected to get some of the money, a little bit, $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, something like that. And then to find out, no, you're not getting any this year. And then we kept asking why, and we found out, well, it went to the farm. Not that I'm saying that's bad, it was the process. So that's why we're doing this, that there will be a pot of money that is set aside that the president, and the Michelle will decide on, but based on criteria, but will report to us quarterly. If we try that for a year with this budget, and then we find out we've got to tweak it, or we really don't like that, this board can change it for the next budget.
All right, I'm going to call straw
I
vote.
guess, I don't.
Could I get in the queue, please, Andy?
Okay, Alan, yeah, because I'm going to take a straw vote on reporting before grants are made for bucket 3.
Thank you. But first of all, on the reporting question, one thing I think that, Dick, that you left out in your recitation of the history is at least one of the things that concerned me was that the number of organizations that CA, through the staff process, gave money to got smaller and smaller over the course of several years. And the amounts tended to get bigger and bigger. And so so that's where I'd be concerned that if that trend continued, I'd be concerned about that. The other thing I want to say is that I just want to ask Michelle, because I don't think I heard an answer to my previous question on the previous issue that I brought up. Michelle, by saying that the criteria is in the application, are you stipulating that the staff is not going to take into consideration how long an organization has been in existence?
I think leaving it open to have the grants be supportive of startup nonprofits and nonprofits that have a proven track record that need some money for maintenance and operations, I think is the way to go.
Okay, thank you.
All right, straw vote on reporting before grants are made for bucket 3. Those in favor?
I'm torn.
Okay, I have 2. Those opposed?
I'll go with favor.
All right, 1, 2, 3, 4,
I'll stand in favor.
5. 1, 2, 3, 4.
How about Alan?
Alan, what did you do?
I just joined in favor.
In favor.
Okay. Jenny, what?
It's informed. I just want to be clear, though. It's informed, not for us to approve.
Alan, we're losing you. Your volume is decreasing and decreasing.
Okay. Well, I'm not sure what's going on because I'm talking as loud as I can. I just want to be clear that the proposal is that we get informed, not that we then vote to approve.
That wouldn't happen.
That is not going to happen. I mean, once you tell the board.
Exactly.
I just want to make sure we know what we're voting on.
4, 5, 1.
This is an approval thing.
Anything
And
else?
I'll be in favor of it.
Wait a minute, 4 or 5, 1.
To what?
Abstain
What-
counts again.
For reporting before the grants are made.
And how many were in favor?
4. And 5 were opposed.
I was.
And 1 abstained.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So straw votes, so that's not. So there's only the one amendment we have,
Okay.
which was the rep for the.
Yeah.
Foundation Grant
Foundation Group.
Committee.
Yes.
All right. So Michelle, if you could kind of take this all back and. and.
That's the only amendment, yes. I'll
That's
see
the
Yes.
that.
Yes. And Bonnie and I are going to sit down and work out what this conversation, how it all gets recorded. It's a little tricky here.
Carefully.
All right. Thank you very much. Let's
Thank you
go
very
on to the April. Thank you, Michelle. Let's go on to the April stakeholder dinner. Guys, 10 minutes. I don't want any more than this. Look,
I move that we approve the recommendation.
Second.
Second.
Dick and Jenny, any discussion? All those in?
Oh,
No. Oh, I approve certainly the idea of it. I'm wondering, do we want to direct them who they have to send, or would we direct each committee to send 2 representatives?
Chair and vice chair.
Right.
Oh,
no,
I see
but
what you
wait,
did.
why do we have to do
Chair,
that?
vice
chair. Good point.
it might be in
Good
some
point.
of the committees, there might be somebody
Super
who'd rather
active.
go, or,
They should decide.
let them decide
That's a
who
good
to
point.
send.
Is
rather
that an
than we
amendment to
decide.
this?
So there's an amendment to just make it 2 reps from each
Yeah,
committee?
I like that. Second that.
Is it-
I would prefer to say the chair and let him decide who the
Yeah.
second person is, rather than us making the decision for them. I think
That sounds good.
they can make their own decision.
Chair and a significant other?
All right. So Nancy is making an amendment which basically says remove vice chair and just say another rep.
And another member of the board.
Any
Another
other
rep from the
person they
committee.
so-
Right.
Even though I'm completely opposed.
So we're saying that if the chair is not available, that committee can only send one?
I know.
No, usually if the chair's not available, the vice chair can fill in for the chair.
Chair is, or
Yeah,
his
I just think
designee, his or her designee, and one other person on the committee, okay? Is that
Yeah.
clarify it?
That makes more sense to
Okay.
me.
All
Yeah.
right.
Is there a
So-
second?
So Nancy made the motion and Janet seconded. To add that language. Any discussion? All those in favor of that amendment?
I was going to say, I think Lynn
I made a
suggested.
motion.
Oh.
God.
Made
Oh,
the
you did?
motion.
Sorry, Lynn.
Raise your hand.
I'm sorry.
Lynn,
1,
raise your
2,
hand.
3, 4, 5, 6,
Thank you.
All right, looks like
everybody.
opposed. Anybody opposed? Abstain? No, it looks like unanimous.
Good job, guys.
All right, I'm going to call the question on the motion. Basically, 2 reps, from each of the committees, the chair, designee, and another rep. All those in favor of that?
Aye.
Unanimous.
Next.
Gives us more room to
We
talk
should
about
probably
the
quit now. That
neighborhood
was pretty
centers.
good.
All right, go on to board discussion. Wow. All right, so we had the meeting last week. If you remember, Judy had 2 slides in particular I wanted to bring to your attention. One was the next steps, debrief the board. Her report did not come in time. It hasn't come in yet, so can't really do a debriefing. But wanted to make sure, the 3 things she said we should, do a debrief. We should do discussion on the timeline update, because she has the suggestions. And then make sure we provide feedback to the villages on our next steps. And she, at the meeting, had proposed an idea for us to consider, which is modifying the timeline we had, and that's on the second page. So is there any discussion on that?
And Andy,
Yes, sure.
what changes, could you focus in on the changes? You said it was modified.
Oh, so our original timeline calls for us to make a decision in March of this year. And I can tell you from the conversations with Judy, as well as Judy's discussion at the last meeting, she thought that was a fairly ambitious, not really doable, and she really thought that the board should take a little more time to involve feedback. And so she suggested that we instead look at going all to actually September, putting the decision off to September, but following a bunch of steps. But it was just her suggestion. Nancy?
I certainly appreciate that suggestion, and as you heard before, the survey that was sent out really needs to have an apology sent out to everyone who received it, because I've gotten a lot of feedback about how bad that survey was and how people felt it was leading the witness, to put it mildly, and it was extremely poorly done. I'm sorry to say, and I don't know who put it together. I just know that it was another black eye for the CA board. And I would like to see, and maybe the other board members here feel the same way, an apology for that being sent out. And if we do extend the timeline, I understand after my conversation with Andy after the meeting 2 weeks ago, that that was done in a rush because we needed to have the response from the community by tonight. Well, obviously, the response from the community that I have heard, and I have not seen any of these surveys, was entirely negative. I did not see a single positive response. And so for that reason, I think we might very well need to change the timeline. But at the same time, I think there are other things we need to do in order to better inform the community of what this is about, rather than make it about the dollars that it's going to cost for the maintenance that has not gone on in a lot of these neighborhood centers over the last 50 years. And no offense, this is not a personal attack on anyone. It's that the boards have not seen fit to include it in their budgets. So I'm not blaming anybody. I'm just saying that this is really not the way to do business.
Thank you.
Okay, so is the board interested in basically modifying our proposed schedule and kind of looking for more input as Judy is suggesting?
Yes.
Can I ask?
Yes, Ginny.
Yeah, guys, in the budget book, I had made a proposal October in our budget book, and this is a little bit rewording it. And CA staff, one of the concerns was they needed to hire somebody in Jane's place that would actually maybe be the person to work on the idea. And that person wasn't on board then, so their recommendation was wait another year. But the person came on board pretty quickly. So what I'm trying to do when you get a chance to read this is say maybe we could look at something different and pick. Oakland Mills is already a pilot for a study on tot lots. And that'll be presented to our village board, and a complete analysis of all of our tot lots in February, I believe, and then it'll come to this board. We've all looked at our neighborhood centers in Oakland Mills. So what I'm suggesting is maybe what we all have in mind is really a gathering place for all ages, all races, et cetera, the Rouse Stream, of something that would be phenomenal and fantastic. I'm not talking about a lot of money, but something that the community would be involved in, and these are all the stakeholders. The location that I'm talking about here has an elementary school. It has a swimming pool. It has a parcel of land that HRD still owns, including half the parking lot. CA owns the other half the parking lot right next to the neighborhood center and the pool. So we certainly want to ask HRD to give us our land back. We seem to be talking about that a lot lately, but give us that parcel back. So it'd be part of an encounter row, Stevens Forest, Kilimanjaro, and in the back, Pamplona has some more open space in the back of the school, in the back of the neighborhood center, and a pond. So if you can just visualize all of that, maybe what we can do is not just look at this as a neighborhood center and look at surrounding tot lots that in many cases people are isolated, or in some cases they're afraid to take their little kid there. And also there's nothing intergenerational about it. So this would be a proposal to get the community involved with the PTA, the school system, and really come up with a community proposal. It'd probably take the next budget process to do this, but it may be something that would actually accomplish what I think many of you want, which is a gathering place for all ages, intergenerational, everybody in the community, and this would be two communities, Talbot Springs and Stevens Forest. And it could be something really exciting, I think, because you'll have a lot of, here, all the stakeholders that I mentioned, merchants, the Interfaith Center, the PT, I'm getting repetitive here, the school, PTA, CA staff, CA board, the Oakland Mills Village Board, all of these people that will be involved could come up with a really exciting proposal that might be different from just come in and fix our neighborhood center and fix, add a few more things. That doesn't really, it's not a gathering place, and we could do that combining all these resources, I think, and that would be very little money. And, okay.
Renee.
You look shocked. What's the matter? You all right?
I'm shocked.
Oh.
I understand that you want an intergenerational gathering place, and I'm not opposed to that. What I'm looking at is a proposal or a policy/procedures for neighborhood centers. They are already up. We have to make some very tough decisions over the coming months or years. I appreciate what you've put together. I think it's something that probably needs to start at the village level. What I'm looking at is several villages that have 14 or more neighborhood centers, and what do we do with them? I share some of my colleagues' disappointment at the survey that went out. I do think that while many of us try to slough off some of this work to the staff, that maybe this is a situation where some of the board members need to meet with staff and give them some direction. I think this is an opportunity for CA to be more transparent, to be more open, to be more willing to look at what our residents are saying. And I think we may have to modify our timeline. I'm not sure that what's put here is exactly right, but I think that this is something that needs to be worked on with senior staff and the board together. And I, for one, will volunteer to spend that time and report back to the board with whoever on senior staff on a regular basis. But I think what you're referring to, if we're building a new building, it's not cheap.
I didn't say that. I didn't say that at all.
But, okay, but all I'm saying is we have some assets that we need to decide what to do. And I like your idea, but I think it has to start in your village and then come to the board.
Well,
no.
we have village board members that are supportive. What is she?
Nancy.
We have opposing views about this whole topic. You have stated in meetings that what your views are, and I have made it clear what my views are. And I think we don't exactly gel, and there's not a problem there, that's fine. But I think going back to my statement that I made before you spoke was simply basically ignored, which I'm really unhappy about. I still feel that that survey was so poor. First of all, we had a person right here at Resident Speak Out who was confused with a community center versus a neighborhood center. And right off the top, that survey should have explained what each of those was, and that we are looking at neighborhood centers, and that this is why we're looking at neighborhood centers, and how these neighborhood centers are currently being used. Do you see any value in this? Rather than saying it's going to cost this much to fix it, is it really worth all that much money? That's essentially what I got out of what was said. And I want to know if any other board member agrees with me, or if I'm going to simply be ignored. I just really want to hear what people think. Thank you. I appreciate your agreement. I don't want to be the only one sitting here saying these things.
I agree with you completely about the survey, 100%.
Thank you.
Dick, and then Janet, and then Lynn.
I think we've already discussed that survey, and it was terrible.
Yeah.
And I think the board pretty much agrees on that, and it was I don't think what it calls for is an apology. I think at this point, the good news is that after the meeting we had recently with the villages, there is a very positive amount of support for seeing what we can do to with the neighborhood centers, and it was just overwhelming how valuable they are and how important it is for us to maintain them. So I would say, if the way to handle this is just let's just forget about that survey. I don't think anything useful came out of it, and let's just announce that we've surveyed the villages, we've talked to the villages, we've talked to the people, the folks who come out to see us meeting after meeting after meeting, and there's a definite need for the neighborhood centers, and the board is going to be working on finding ways to find the funding to do what needs to be done, and just leave it at that.
Thank you.
And as for the timeline, This thing's been going on for 2 years now, and I sure would like to get it wrapped up. And I'm disappointed we haven't gotten a report back from the meeting. I hope it will get it in the mail within the next few days, whatever. And and maybe you need to light a fire there, but let's see if we can get that thing. We can look at it, and after we've seen what's said in it, then we can talk about whether we extend the timeline or not.
Janet. And then Lynn and then Char.
Based on everything that I have heard from our board, I do not see any indication that people are willing to close neighborhood centers unless a village is proposing something with their own personal neighborhood center. And so I question the validity of continuing the conversation if we have no intention of closing anything and we know that we need to fund it. I think the conversation really needs to focus on, do we want to fund things at the full, full level, or are there things that we can do, not to cut corners, but to be economical about how we invest in our neighborhood centers? I haven't heard anything that suggests that the board will vote to close any neighborhood centers at all. And so rather than push something to September, let's just be realistic here. And the interesting thing is that a board member that's no longer with us said that very thing when this whole conversation started. Right. And that was, we can go through this whole process and no one's going to close a single center. And I believe that that is true. And everyone has come up with great reasons why we shouldn't. And I'm fully supportive of keeping all of them open. I don't want to vote to close any. And so I think what needs to happen is we need to be more productive in our conversation and move forward what our solutions are to support our neighborhood centers. And I mean, so Oakland Mills, if they see an alternative that they'd like to sort of make a trade-off, then, that's a suggestion that is certainly welcome. And, I know that Dennis has had some suggestions for alternatives, so there may be opportunities for villages to sort of work within, some of the things that we know that we have to deal with. But, let's not spend any more time coming up with criteria. I can't imagine what criteria there is that is going to have anyone vote against keeping them open.
Lynn.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you said. However, I think each village is unique. Each village's needs are unique. Oakland Mills has a particular problem. You have a very unresponsive owner, and you have a village that needs and wants, something better. I mean, it may be in this case that this is a very ambitious proposal. It sounds great. It may be that something like this can be combined with part of the discussion. I still don't know. I know I think obviously it was obvious that there's a great support for most of the neighborhood centers. There still may be some that aren't used. We don't have to treat each one the same. I think we have to look at this comprehensively and make some individual distinctions.
Sorry.
I think Janet has suggested something that is practical, that gets us to action, and that moves us forward. I think what we learned from the survey, which was valuable, is that in going forward in our discussions with community members, we need to do a much better job at drawing a distinction between what is a neighborhood center, what is a community center, where are they located, and what do they do? I think those are real basics, and make that the beginning point for any discussion with the general public. So that was a good learning I think on our part, and we can use this kind of debrief to say, okay, that was very valuable. Now let's move on from that point. I also agree that you have to start with purpose, not with the finances. I understand the reason why the finances have come up very clearly. But we have faced this with the lakes, we have faced this with the pools, and now we're facing it with the neighborhood centers. Let's start with purpose first. And a lot of that depends upon the individual village and what the village feels the purpose and meaning is for that village.
Yes, I agree.
Ginny?
Yeah, I'm not going to beat this to death, but we can talk offline more. But what I'm trying to say is, I've heard that, well, Oakland Mills should start this on their own. They can't. They can't. There's no way. It's got to be something that is facilitated, the community process. I've talked to a lot of community members. They're excited about the opportunity to really look at this area of the land, work with all these stakeholders, see maybe we can do something different. And I'm not talking about a building. We don't know what will come out of this. So there's no budget for construction at all because we don't know. So the thing is to just see how we can do what we all say Rouse wanted, a collection place, a gathering place, a place where everybody will really come together with activities, et cetera. You've got all of the elements, but there's no real plan. Maybe a bench down near the pond, maybe something. But we shouldn't decide that. The community should. And then when you get that plan that the community has voted on, maybe two options, then you work on what it'll cost. Then it comes to the CA board, and the CA board could say, well, lots of luck on that one. It costs too much. Go raise it yourself. Or you have to trade in some things. We understand that. But we can't develop a plan without a facilitator and without the expertise on the CA staff, which is why I put it in the budget to ask. It just can't be done, guys. And I think it could be a very different approach. It doesn't mean you all have to take it and do it in your village or your neighborhood or with your neighborhood centers. But, you know, we've got one that has nothing in it in Talbot Springs. Nobody's in it.
And
So.
anything else? Because I was going to say,
I'm sorry,
Janet is very gracious.
I'd like to
agreed
thank
to write her proposal up so we get a better sense of it and kind of I get a sense that that's the way the board, because I don't want to try to figure it all out
I
here.
would like to make one point, though, because I know, and I don't know which village it's in, maybe it's Dorsey. There was the one example of one single commercial entity getting cut rate rent, and I think across the board, that was generally frowned upon. So there may be a scenario that falls outside of all of the rest of the general consensus.
Yeah, yeah.
If it's a problem.
All right, so
do the
is
repairs.
that
I'd
okay?
like to
We're going
move
to
the
let
queue, please.
Janet work on something.
So
She'll
we
send it
send
out.
her our
You can
thoughts?
send her your thoughts.
Okay.
And
Could I
then
get in the queue,
also,
please?
hopefully, I will get you out. Hopefully, you know,
Thank
whenever
you.
we get Judy's report, we'll send it out to the board. It just hasn't come in yet. All right, Alan's next. Alan.
Yeah, I just, couple of things. Few things. One is just a quick question. Lynn, you said Oakland Mills has an unfriendly owner. We own the neighborhood center, so I'm not clear what owner you were talking about.
The village center. The
Village
Cedar
Center.
She was talking
Village
about the
Center,
village
okay.
center.
2 blocks away.
Thank you.
Village.
Right.
Okay.
See, even you're
Thank you.
confusing.
Thank you. I just wanted to get clear on that. Couple of other things. One of our issues is that we keep looking at these issues, and somebody enumerated them, the ponds and the pools and et cetera, the tot lots for this. We keep looking at them separately. And that's fine for short term, but for long term, we need to look at the whole package. And that's going to require longer than 20 minutes on a board agenda. It's going to require a larger process in a way that we can look at all the different moving parts and say, well, if we want it, and get staff to let us know we think it's going to take this much to maintain this part, this much to maintain that part. We can do this, and then we can see what the different moving parts are, look out ahead 10, 20 years, and make some long-term planning in that way.
Alan, that's what this
that's
would
what I
do. the tot lots,
Wait,
the
let-
pond,
let
and the
Alan talk.
neighborhood
Let-
center.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Let Alan
Thank
talk.
you. I may be agreeing with you. I'm just saying that's what we need to do is take the bigger look. The last thing I want to say about this survey, and I know this gets for some perilously close to blame. It's not my intention to blame anybody, but we don't know who put that survey out about the neighborhood centers. But my biggest concern is I haven't heard the staff from Milton on out say, we hear you, we agree, this is the lesson we've learned from this. That went out with a board member's signature and with from CA, which we are in charge of. I'm not about blaming you. I just want to know, have we learned anything so that we can speak with a greater single voice, unified moving forward, and not have something like this come out of the blue. Two things: come out of the blue, one, which bothered me, and two, be so horrible a survey just from a survey point of view, survey structure creation point of view, and secondly from a content point of view, as people said, leading the witness. I need to know, I would like to know, I think the board ought to know what lessons the staff has learned from this. And so far, the staff has been silent about that.
Alan, I
I'm
think I
done.
sent out some lessons learned. I think I did.
From you, not the staff. I haven't heard that the staff has learned anything.
I think the staff has learned. All right. Dick was next. Dick.
I just want to say that I like your plan, Ginny. We really need to look at this holistically. And it's not just a matter of whether we repair a building or whatever. It is, it's the whole enchilada here. And I'd like to see you get more information from your village. As for the Dorsey Search problem situation, we had in our facility, we did have a daycare preschool thing. They've left, and we have a new group coming in, and we're jacking up the rent. So I just want you to be aware of that.
All right.
And
That will be
the other
well
thing is,
received.
every one of these situations, every one of these village situations is different. Every one of these centers is different, and we have to recognize that. But it's time to move forward. This idea that we're going to wholesale shut these things down, I think we've heard from the community, we've heard from the board members. We have to find a way at this point to move ahead with these neighborhood centers, and that's something we need to start thinking about and moving it, getting this thing. Let's get it done.
All right. Let's move on. Jana's going to work on something. So let's move on to applicable state legislation. Any discussion? You got the memo. Dick.
When we got the next memo, I didn't see any of the three items that we had asked to be included. Well, the question of the contributions from developers to people who are making the decisions, the in lieu payment question, and there was a third one, I don't have it in my notes right here.
I'm not clear on what you're talking about, Dick. Contributions from developers to who?
There is a piece of legislation that would limit.
I understand that, and I addressed that legislation in my last memo.
You said, the last memo I got didn't mention that particular piece.
That memo, at the moment, is a Howard County local bill, and it was described in the first memo that I sent out about the legislative session. So you need to go back and look at the first memo.
The first memo said that we were not going to do much about it. We were just going to watch it.
That's what we're going to do.
And then you got feedback from the board saying we need to more than watch it, and we haven't heard any response.
The way our policy works, Dick, is unless a majority of the board votes to do something different than whatever I have said in my memo, then we will do something different. That has not yet occurred.
Well,
So
here
as
we
far
are.
as I'm
Let's
concerned,
let's have a vote.
Make a motion.
and if you're going to vote to do something, then we need clarity as to what it is you want to do.
Okay. My position is that there were 3 items that that the CA council had said is none of our business, we don't want to go there, it's too political, yada, yada, yada. And I thought we had a consensus of the board at the work session that these were things that were of interest to CA because they affected the Newtown development and our architectural environment. And it should be something that we more than just keep an eye on. And I'm sorry I didn't bring my notes from exactly what the 3 things were, but I just wanted to upgrade them to things that we are concerned about.
All right. I know Alan's in the queue. Alan?
I just asked Dick to make a motion.
I'm sorry, the one thing that's holding me back is I can't remember what the 3rd item was.
Pick 2.
Can anybody recall what that was?
You mean the third bill? Or the
Yeah,
third?
the 3rd bill. There's a
All of the bills that I've talked about so far are on the back side of the page that has the new bills on the front.
Right.
So it would have to be something on this list.
Moderate income housing, ethics.
Well, Dick, you did have concerns about the butterfly
the
building.
butterfly, that was the other
And I
item.
think
Yes,
we'll be
thank you.
addressing that with the
Okay.
advisory committee and the updated concept plan.
Okay, so the 2 then are the in lieu fees and the limit on developer contributions. And so I move that we take an active role in promoting those bills with whatever amendments are necessary, but at least it is the sense of the board that these are important items that we should be in favor of.
I'll second that, but I
Second.
also wanted to make a friendly amendment.
Just a second, give me a chance. Okay. All
It
right,
was something that
Nancy,
said
you-
that we send a letter in support of
Yeah.
these bills.
Thank you. I should have thought of that.
That's why we're here.
okay, I
It
assume
helped
what
me.
we're saying is Dick and Nancy, the motion is to send letter
In support.
of support.
On the campaign financing?
That's what they're going to propose.
No, I'm just asking.
Motion to letter of support. It's
So you're talking about 11-20,
20 and
the fee in lieu,
15-20.
and, yeah, 15-20. Okay.
actually what I'd
Can
like
we
is.
include that said letter will include why it's important to Columbia Association so that we align it with our strategic goals?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Could we separate that though and vote on each of those separately? Because some people might be in favor of one and not
Each
another.
of the bills?
Yeah, just 2 bills. Just take them up each individually.
Okay. Well, that's okay with me.
All right, well, let's do the moderate income housing unit requirements. Discussion. So, Dick, what is your?
Well, my position on that is that what developers tend to do is not fulfill the requirements of, and instead make a payment. And as a result, there's a fund that piles up, and we're not getting the affordable housing or the moderate income housing that we want. We just have a fund that sits there and and nothing's happening. We have a similar problem with watershed, where developers are not containing their wastewater, their stormwater, and letting it roll downhill, but they're just paying into a fund. And my position is that this in lieu thing is just an escape hatch for developers not fulfilling their duties.
Do you know where the money in the fund goes? I mean,
On the affordable housing thing,
well, no, that's different. We're talking about the moderate housing. I know where the other one goes, because that goes to the Housing Commission and they buy
I
properties.
have no idea where that.
That's what I was wondering, what
Yeah,
does that do?
I'd like to know that. It doesn't, it was very confusing, the bill, it was written.
Ginny?
I believe the money goes to the Housing Commission, but I'm not sure.
Oh, so then they use it for their purposes?
But they're not being used where they're supposed to be used.
That's right.
That's the
Right.
problem.
It ends up concentrating housing in the
key.
wrong places.
Yeah, that is the key. Oakland Mills had that example a couple of years ago where in other areas they don't want housing, so the money went into the Housing Commission, and the commission, in its wisdom, purchased a private apartment complex, the Verona. So
Okay, but
in
we're
Columbia.
talking, but we're
But
talking
that's,
two, no, we're talking two different
low-income
things.
housing.
That's the affordable housing. That's not the moderate. The moderate is
Supposed to be
the
included.
middle income. They didn't buy any moderate income in your village.
Nope, they bought all low income.
Right.
I was just answering the question about what was happening.
Yeah, but the question is,
It is
what,
being, yeah.
what does happen with the moderate income funds? Yeah.
I didn't know there was a
And I don't even know if it
Well,
goes to.
maybe in the letter, what we should say is we are concerned about the in lieu funding not going, not,
remaining on site is really the issue.
We're concerned about the money not being used to develop moderate income housing.
On site.
Within the units that they're currently building.
Yeah, on site.
Right.
All right.
Yeah.
So that's what you want the letter to say, is we are concerned with.
That's a very good summary, thank you.
Yeah, the issue is distribution, yes, on site. It should remain on site.
Yeah. Moderate housing, I actually haven't heard anybody argue against moderate housing. Low-income housing, yes, but moderate income.
Yeah, we're setting a precedent here.
Have you heard about Hickory Ridge's Village Center?
That's all.
Moderate.
No, it isn't.
Any housing.
Well,
Ew.
it's upper income,
Yes.
but go talk to a village member and they'll tell you it's, never mind.
Potential is for.
Moderate
low-income is what
has
they
a,
think.
In the eyes of the holder.
Okay,
well, for the county, it's a set, there's a formula.
So my movement is, or my motion
Right.
is that
We
we express a concern
Right.
that the in lieu funding
Right.
is resulting in the need not being filled
Right.
On site.
on site.
The on site is the
Okay.
key,
Yeah,
right?
that is key, thank you.
Yeah.
Sherry,
Yeah,
you think you got that?
I have it. I just need a vote so I know whether or not this is what you want me to do.
Bonnie, do you think you have it?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Hearing any further discussion on that one? If not, all those in favor of sending that letter?
I'm up. I'm
Aye.
Okay.
I'm sure she's for it too.
901, Shari is abstaining.
I'm sure she's for it.
She's not here. She's not
She's
here.
not here.
No, I'm not
Can't
going to do
vote for
that. I
people,
am
Nancy.
not going to do that.
I think that crosses the
Well,
line.
then, Andy,
We're not doing that.
Andy,
going to vote for it.
you can't vote her as abstaining either. She didn't abstain. She's
Yes,
not
she did
present for the
She's
vote.
not
So,
present.
here.
Right.
Present.
Not present.
Yeah, this
so
is
it's unanimous.
Obama when he was in the
Oh,
Senate,
yeah.
not present.
For those who listen.
Okay, I was going to check Wendy's writing.
All right. The next one is 15-20, limit on developer contributions. Dick, what do you want to say about that one?
I would say that we send a letter, I move that we send a letter expressing a concern that campaign contributions unfairly influence the county
Council.
planning and zoning, whatever. Process.
That's good. And so we recommend that there not be allowed any contributions.
That they be controlled.
I don't think they should have any, but that's me.
Well, no, Dick is making a motion.
that's
Sorry,
it.
sorry, Nan. Dick is making a motion. I'm trying to capture it.
Okay. The motion is that we are concerned that developer contributions to elected officials unfairly influence planning and development, the planning and development process,
You voted to not
to the disadvantage of the public.
How about leaving the last part out, just unfairly influenced?
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, in the interest of brevity.
All right.
Well, I think that last part could be an important part in terms of why we care.
Yeah,
We're supposed to be about community benefit.
Any other discussion? No, I don't, yeah, Lynn.
Yeah, for making just a very general statement, fine. I read the bill quite a while ago, but it has some very specific limitations and time periods and things like that. I don't know enough about how those would work and how those would influence who could run and who couldn't. I mean, I think some of them were within a 3-year period. How would you know? I don't know enough about that bill to know that some of those parts of it would be, what the effects would be.
I can answer that.
No, Ginny next, and then Dick.
Yeah, I haven't read the bill in a couple of weeks. Did it also deal with whether you could vote as a zoning board member or not, depending on when you got the contribution?
Yeah.
You have to recuse yourself? I thought there was something in there.
Right, there were a lot of stipulations and,
Now, the delegation didn't vote on that,
No.
right?
Well, I was going to actually ask for clarification, because when you say send a letter expressing concern, both of these bills now are still in the delegation. Neither has been filed as an actual bill in the General Assembly. So when you're saying send a letter, I'm assuming you're meaning that we need to send a letter to the delegation.
I mean, I think we have to send it to delegation because we don't know if they're going to get filed.
Right.
Right.
And yeah, I read that bill, and yeah, it's 36 months, but
Yeah.
it's and Warren Miller wrote it, so I'm sure something devious is going on there. But
No.
I take that back.
That's not.
He's just
I take
kidding.
that back.
Yes.
And
you should.
but I do feel that the subject of developer contributions is something that is very worthy of concern.
Yeah.
So, I would actually happen to agree with Lynn in the sense there's a lot of stuff in that particular bill. I agree with the sentiment that we should, I mean, that issue should be addressed. It's just, I got to admit, I am not sure that is the actual bill that I would particularly support or that might actually, get it. It's just, it has lots of things, and I think a lot of those. But I think in general, if we're just sending a letter to the delegation, not in support of that particular bill, but in support of the issue that they need to address.
That's fine with me.
I would go that way. This one in particular, I'm not sure I would support that.
It's a very convoluted bill, and
it is.
And I'm sure that. Anyway, so let's just say that it does raise issues that we that we think should be resolved.
Right. So that's what you're really talking about. All right. And Dick is making that motion. Who's seconding it? And Nancy is seconding it. Okay. So it's just a letter of concern, not particular support for a particular bill. Any further discussion? All right. All those in favor of the letter of concern?
Aye.
Unanimous. All right. That's pretty much it. Yes, Lynn?
Well,
okay.
While we're discussing
Sure. Yep.
Part B, I'd like to bring
Part
up
B?
the
Part B?
butterfly design
Okay.
again.
Mm-hmm.
The bond bill really is important. And this is for design. If the money is allocated, the money won't come in for, like months, so that it really won't even be able to be used for another year. The committee will have met by then, this larger committee that we are getting together for the community input. At this point, we have scaled down the design so that it can be done in phases. We think we can finance it. We have people interested in, already interested in being major donors to it. We're looking at it now in 3 phases. You know, the center phase first, which would be a fairly simple phase, but necessary. Then we could add on to other phases, so we could get, you know, say, a visitor center with bathrooms. It's a guest services building with, we could have a real community use for it. Tourism is interested in it. I think it would be ideal in the park. So, you know, again, let's use our bond money while it's available.
So Lynn, instead of issuing about all the time about this, I think Sherry has something.
I can't go into any detail because we're in an open meeting, but I am concerned that opposing this bond bill may run contrary to the terms of the easement agreement between CA and Inner Harbor Trust.
Okay, so what I am going to suggest, Lynn, why don't you make a motion?
Okay, I move.
Because it makes it easier for all of us instead of we're just discussing.
Thank you. I move that we support the Howard County Butterfly Building Design Bond.
Second.
All right, now let's discuss that motion. Dick, and I'm sorry, Renee had her hand up first. I apologize. Renee and then
Sometimes you have
Dick.
to be noisy. I just have a couple of questions. I just want to understand what, I understand you're scaling it down. I want there to be a bathroom in the first part. Are there going to be bathrooms?
Yes, there has
That's
to
all
be,
I need
absolutely.
to know.
Welcome center, bathrooms.
Yes, yes.
Welcome center,
all I wanna
bathrooms,
know.
ability to expand.
Right.
That's the whole
So-
idea.
Put a bathroom in
Right.
All right, anything else,
And
Renee?
that's probably the
Dick.
only way we're getting them.
When I brought this up the
An
last,
ADA accessible.
last time, I was concerned because we don't have a master plan yet for the park. And I'm concerned about putting in ad hoc structures before we have an overall view of what the park's all about. And my feeling is right now, Nina's and I've spoken to Nina about this, Nina's putting together a committee to develop a master plan, at least to work out what the, you know, what the requirements are, what the needs are. And so I have asked her to share that with the board, since this is on our land, you know, what, not that master plan, but the steps. It sounds like she's got a pretty good idea of what she wants to do with the building formerly known as the Butterfly, because I understand it's changed also. I'd like to invite Nina to come and talk to us about what it is she's got in mind. It sounds to me like they've lowered the cost, they've got a step-by-step process, and before we take a position on this particular bond bill, I'd like to get Inner Harbor to give us, to fill us in on just what it is they've got planned.
Any other discussion?
Janet first, yeah.
And then Jenny.
I just
Alan.
wanted
And Alan.
Then
to
Alan.
say that the plan is to, 1, scale back the cost of the building. 2, include initially only a visitor center and bathrooms to service the Chrysalis, because that has been an ongoing issue with events at the Chrysalis. And create a design that supports expansion if that is ever desired in the future. So I don't know that we need a whole presentation to say whether or not we support it. It's going to be about $1 million for the building itself, which is significantly scaled down from, I think, the 7 or 8 that it started out at. And it is really just to support the activity and the programming that's currently going on in the park.
Well, I like that, but you're talking about a 3-part process. So if we start with $1 million, now we're locked into the next 2 pieces. And all I'm asking is just to see what the concept is, where exactly it's going to go, how big it's going to be, how many, you know, how big's the bathroom? I mean, these are all reasonable things that we should be discussing.
Okay, Ginny's next.
Yeah.
And then Alan, and then Renee.
Yes. Okay, I guess I was assuming that as part of the design, hopefully you would be representing us on that subcommittee, and that be heavily involved in all of this, and the board would be involved in. But my concern is the delegation has already approved many bonds, and there's only so much money available to each county delegation. Unbelievable, I don't know what the total amount was, but a lot of bond issues, they voted yes. This one they held up with some others. So we've run out of time. If they haven't voted already, they may be voting this week, yes or no on this. So if we want to have an influence on it, we need to be voting tonight, guys, seriously.
Yep.
Absolutely.
With understanding that, have we voted for Dick yet?
No.
We haven't even
No,
discussed
that's next.
it.
That's
Sorry
the
about that.
next.
Well,
And
you
We
know.
still have a few topics to cover, so let's move on.
All right, so that's, I think we can handle your concern, but I think if we don't move tonight, we're going to have
Alan
no
is
impact.
next. Alan is next.
Yeah. I think with the whole merger question and question of what's going to happen with the parts of the easement, I think it seems, I get Sherry's concern that we're supposed to support the Inner Arbor and not support. We're not supposed to get in the way of the Inner Arbor doing what it wants to do. That doesn't mean we have to support it. I don't think we need to take a position on it now. The delegations can look at it and make up their own mind.
Renee.
I'm ready to vote.
Yes, let's
All right.
call the
Any
question.
discussion, further discussion? If not, I'll call the question, which is support for the bond bill for the design of butterfly guest services. All those in favor? That's Sherry, Nancy, Lynn, Janet, Ginny, Renee, Rafia, and Andy all opposed.
Opposed?
I'm gonna abstain.
And Dick abstains.
After all that,
Okay.
seriously?
Okay.
Well,
On the
I
committee.
see where the sense of the meeting is, so I'm gonna back off for now.
All right.
I have another question, but
Okay.
not about that.
Well,
No more.
anything on state, let's,
Yes.
all right.
The Electric Vehicle Recharging Equipment for Multifamily Units Act. I would like to send a letter in support of that. I make a motion that we send a letter in support of that.
Second.
Do again? Oh.
It's electric vehicle recharging equipment for multifamily units.
Isn't that for new units, right?
I have no idea. I just know I like the idea and I'm supporting it.
All right, just a second. Let me get
Is that a
this one
bond bill,
down.
or-
No, it's House Bill
It's
111.
requiring, I think, electrical charging in new units
Okay.
of construction.
Oh, yeah.
Let's see,
Howard
it was
County's done
Nancy.
that already. Yeah.
And Renee. All right. Any discussion? Oh, I have some, because my problem is I haven't read this and I don't know exactly what the bill says. I mean, I understand it's fine, and I, support multifamily units, but my difficulty is sometimes there are things in this bill that may affect not just Columbia, but may affect our villages, especially if it overrides covenants or something.
And it will.
That's well, yeah, we see that's my problem is I can tell you I will not support the bill that says you can override the covenants just because somebody wants electric charging station. I would rather all the villages are working on putting language in their covenant document, in their guidelines about how to go out approving it, and I think that's the way to do it. But I don't think you just arbitrary.
And I
tell the
withdraw
village.
my motion.
But that's
fine.
all right. That's
That was fun.
all right. Anything else? Nancy withdrew.
Get a charge
One
out of
moment
that.
to
All right,
spotlight.
we're moving on to the IAT working group.
Just so you know, kind of point of
That was bad.
information.
I'm sorry.
SB 107 on having to pay fees to, having to pay association fees to
Yes.
your mortgage company, your bank, whatever. At the hearing, the banks hate it. So it is very unlikely that it will pass.
Okay.
Just so you know.
Should we send a letter in support?
No. No. We are on the IAT working group. Okay. IAT Working Group. I want to thank Janet, who sent out the information. I hope everyone got a chance to look at it. They want to send. All right. So, any discussion on that? Is the board in favor of taking part in that community? I mean, that working group, what you call it.
So I move that we accept her plan for the IAT working group.
Second.
All right. Any discussion on that? Okay. All those in favor? Alan?
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
All right. Do we have a rep? Anybody wants to be the rep?
I'd like to move that Dick be our rep.
Second.
Give me 1 minute here. I'm running out of room.
Andy, while you're writing, I don't see anything in the packet about this.
Janet sent out an email to all the board
Okay.
members.
Yes, so Janet asked me to provide something, and I had a horrendous week and was not able to get it to her. And so I emailed it out to everybody. So I apologize. It was intended to be in the packet, and I believe she posted it on, yeah,
On the Google
Advisory
Drive,
board,
yeah.
Yeah.
Just have-
Yeah, I should mention, when I meant Janet Evans here, who sent out an email with the background. And I did, in my email to the board, reminded everyone to please, look at both her and Dennis's email for tonight. All right, Shar, you had a,
Just point of information. How long would this group be going on for?
months.
2 months?
Yep.
Oh, sure, okay, thank you.
Yeah,
all right, so
it says Inner Board of Directors, that's incorrect.
Oh, correct. It should be stakeholder
So
advisory.
we don't.
Stakeholder
this is
advisory.
Yeah, right, so we need to correct the agenda, that's not what we're
What?
talking about.
It says IAT Working Group. That's what the agenda says.
Well.
Oh, not the one that's posted on
Not
the
the one
Oh,
that's
no, the one I got as of today says IAT Working Group.
I downloaded this from the packet. It
Oh,
wasn't
no.
updated.
Yeah. Okay,
Never
I'm
mind.
sorry, that's what I was working on, it says IAT Working Group.
Okay.
Maybe there is some other one out there.
As long as it's updated, but we should probably update the packet
Yes.
online so that if other people want to access.
Because
Right.
otherwise it's going
So
to get
that's-
confusing. 'Cause
That's good.
you
Susan,
guys
can
are
you
our
capture
reps to
that?
Yeah.
Susan's got that.
May
Okay.
I also ask that the email, the outline you had for the working group be part of that packet?
Right. I copied Janet on it, so.
Okay, but to make sure it's
Yeah.
included, even though it's after the meeting.
All right, okay, so if I remember correctly, we did vote on that motion and it got
Yes.
approved. No, we didn't. All right, so the first motion is to accept the IAT Working Group. We did that,
We did
right?
Yeah, we did
I
that.
move- I move
All
that
right.
Dick be the rep.
Is there
Okay.
anyone else who'd be interested in participating?
Dick as
Or
rep.
be backup for Dick in the event?
And
that he can't
Ginny
make it?
moved and Renee seconded.
Yeah, it's a good idea to have a backup.
Dick, are you willing to serve as a rep?
I'll humbly
What?
accept.
You want us to
All right, any
So-
discussion on Dick as the rep?
No.
If not,
No, but I would like to have a follow-up. I think maybe we should just have a backup in the event that Dick can't make it, that we
all
have
right.
somebody
Is there
designated.
somebody on the
Sherry?
board who would
Sherry?
like?
I'll be your backup.
Interested?
Yep.
So Dick is rep and
Sherry for
Sherry.
the backup.
Sherry is backup.
Is there a second?
Well, and Renee, we'd accept that as an amendment to the motion.
Of course.
Friendly amendment.
Friendly amendment. All right. So the amendment is Dick as the rep and Shari as the backup rep. Hearing no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain, unanimous. Alan?
He said aye.
He said
Aye.
Okay, thank you. All right. President's report, as I said, unfortunately, Milton is under the weather and not with us tonight. If you have any questions, send him an email.
Not if he's not
Sorry.
feeling well.
Andy, I just have a question.
Sure.
Did you participate in any of these meetings? We have a whole list of meetings.
Which ones?
Um,
Community college, no.
The
Spending
spending,
affordability, no.
there are lots of issues here,
Library,
but
no.
we don't know what any of the issues
No.
are.
No, I did not attend and I did not participate in any of these meetings.
Okay.
The other one I did was the, in which I've told you about, the merger committee for arts.
Okay, so I guess my only suggestion would be that when these meetings are listed, remember the board had asked as part of our analysis to have some idea of what the issues are that pertain to CA and how these might represent challenges or opportunities to CA.
Or threats.
That would, you know, have some meaning for the board, and then we could do some follow-up questions for Milton.
Okay.
Are they, I'm sorry, are you asking about the list, the Andy's list?
No, this is about the president's report.
On the very first page, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There were 6.
The Spending Affordability Advisory Committee. So I know eventually they're going to come out with the report, but what are some of the issues that were involved in those recommendations? How might that affect CA or our communities? So that's all I'm saying here. We don't have access to any of this.
I think that's a good point.
Otherwise.
And it's been made before, yeah. Okay.
Anything else? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
Sure.
will just add this, that we have asked for, and this is similar to what Sherry is asking for, except this is overall, that the board gets something that's not out there for the public, but a confidential memo from the president if there are any issues that we might need to be alerted to. And we have not gotten any. I'm sure he's dealing with things that we have no idea about, and it would be a good idea for us to be informed.
So the request was?
That if there are problems, any kind of problems that he's dealing with, that the board should be informed about these things.
Okay.
I spoke with someone today who is on a committee with him and told me some things that I said, I know nothing about any of this. And we don't get feedback about these committees that he's on. And so we should be informed of what's going on the various committees.
Nancy, question. On what basis, on what legal basis would such a memo be confidential?
Well, because if he's on the committee of something, I don't know, I'm not a lawyer, obviously, and our lawyer is not in the room, but there might be things that he cannot, and if it's confidential to that group, he wouldn't be able to tell us about it anyway, but if it is something that is not confidential, he should be informing us.
I think to that point, even if it is confidential, we could have topics that were discussed, even if we aren't told what the conversation was.
It would be helpful. I spoke with someone actually who called me from the community, and I explained to her that about the DAP, and one reason in my mind that I voted against the 200,000 was because I had asked for a budget and we never received one. And I was told by this person that it was her understanding that there had been a budget given to us. And this person said that the budget had been given to senior leadership of the CA board. I said that could be, but we've never seen it. So
you asked in a public meeting
okay.
for it.
Susan's got the point you raised.
But have you seen this budget? Okay.
I think I know which one you're talking about, but no. Anything else?
I have one thing.
Rafia.
At the Hickory Ridge board meeting, we received these Columbia Solar info sessions with the Columbia Association logo on it. Exactly what role are we playing in that? Because I was concerned when I saw that, because I was not aware, and it was the way it was marketed, it was basically coming across as we are the partner in doing that.
Oh.
And there is, my concern is that there are liabilities associated with it. Do we have an agreement signed with them for indemnification if that happens, and et cetera, et cetera? So I would recommend if somebody would go to the session, they're going to do it again. But it really, the logo of Columbia Association being marketed by them as we support that. So it almost coming up not just we support that, but it's coming across as we are the co-partner.
Right.
And that was a concern in my mind. So I brought this to say that have we given them the permission to use our logo? Okay, and
What's the title of this? What's the title on there? I can't read it.
It was just Tuesday, February 11th.
No, the title.
Title says Columbia Solar Info.
Oh, solar. Okay, I couldn't read that from over here.
Columbia Solar Info Session, and in cooperation with Columbia Association and that. And the presentation almost came, so I be sitting there, I was like kind of concerned. And one of our representatives was there from Columbia Association.
I was going to say, doesn't Jeremy participate?
We put on those sessions.
Right. Yes.
Right, those are our sessions. We put them on.
Our sessions?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We market the solar, this thing. So we are in this business?
It's community outreach. So we facilitate the residents working with the solar companies to put solar on their homes. So we don't personally install the solar, but it's part of our community outreach program. It's actually
Okay.
It's in my video tonight.
Okay, so I'm glad, but then I just want to know that do we have all kind of indemnification agreement with them in case if something happens that, like for example, I'm looking at these installations, right? And something happens, some mishap happens, and somebody gets hurt. Do we have full agreement with them that they will indemnify for us any losses occurring from all these installations and things like that?
They're not our contractors, so.
Okay, so I just want to know that, there are things and responsibilities. I would like to make sure that that is covered for us. This was that's why.
Right,
it
we've been
almost-
doing them for a while.
Right, so, okay.
But that is,
So, but I think we need to be, thank you.
All right, we're going to move on to most recent development tracker. Kristen, thank you. Welcome.
He's been very patient.
Keeping me up. Me too. I can't even see where I'm supposed to let it goes. Yeah. So with this presentation tonight falling toward the end of the month, there's actually not a whole lot to share with you. Two pre-submission meetings that are coming up. The first is Dorsey Overlook. This is an out parcel that we're monitoring. The pre-submission meeting is coming up in February. They're looking to put 82 apartment units at the corner of 108 and Columbia Road.
I can give you a little information on that. We just were notified. This had been a 55-plus project.
Right, and that seems to be changing.
This plan has changed dozens of times.
Yeah.
Wow.
And currently it's on hold because they were going to buy Old Route 108 for $50,000. And the community said that was not enough. And the developer had hired the estimator. And so that's gone back. I think the county is going to find somebody to estimate the true cost of that piece of road. And so our heads are spinning because every couple of months they come in with a new
It seems that the
proposal.
55-plus concept has possibly been abandoned or at least put as a plan B, and this is coming forward now just as, not an age-restricted development. And although we have not seen plans yet, there's nothing to review. It appears that it would probably be by right, but it may still offer some opportunities for us to advocate for better pedestrian and bike connections along that frontage.
Yeah, the community has been very involved in this.
Yeah.
And there is this hearing coming up at
Yeah.
London Hall. So I just wanted to fill you in on the latest, but it sounds like you're on top of it.
Yeah, Jessica filled me in a bit, and she's sorry she can't be here tonight. She's not feeling well. So that's the updates I have on Dorsey Overlook, and we'll continue to monitor that for you. Then Talbot Springs Elementary School, we're looking at construction of a new school. The old school will be demolished. I'm told that the new school will probably be on the portion of the site that currently has an old baseball diamond. Okay, and then upcoming public meetings. Hickory Ridge, I went to the meeting, gosh, was this last week or this? I'm losing track of my days, but I think it was last week. I went to the Hickory Ridge meeting that went rather late into the evening, and we're still hearing testimony from the architect. There was not time for public comment, and that will start first thing on the meeting of the 29th. And I think that there's still a number of meetings to go before we get through the Hickory Ridge hearings.
Ginny.
How many hearings have they had so far? Never mind.
Yeah.
Do you think this might be the last one? Will the opposition get a chance?
So the 29th,
or is this just for people supporting it those 2 days?
They're going to start with supporters.
Uh-huh.
There were quite a number of people there at the meeting last week, and it could go on. I think that they'll get to the people, the objectors. I don't know that they'll get through all of the supporters and all of the objectors in one hearing.
By the 5th?
Oh, no, on the 29th, I'm not sure that they'll get through everybody. By the 5th, they'll get through everybody.
So that could be the end. Okay, thanks.
In theory.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Enterprise Homes, this is an amendment to a PDP for a total of 600 units, 300 affordable, 300 market. Back in October, CA did provide a letter of support to the zoning board. And then Erickson, this got planning board recommendation a while back, and now they need to get their rezoning and PDP amendment. On this, River Hill is really taking the lead on that, and we're kind of sitting back and letting them be the face before the board, and that's their prerogative. But we are, of course, still following it and making sure that we're abreast and keeping you abreast of whatever's happening there. That's all I've got.
Any questions? If not, thank you very much.
Okay.
Appreciate it, Kristen.
Thank you.
Go get some sleep.
Okay, next we're moving on to Open Space and Facility Services January update. Welcome, Dennis.
But not least.
Most important. I don't know if you want to lock the door and come back. Yeah. Can you find anybody else here?
Okay. No Disney.
Yeah, yeah, we're sending a letter saying we want it to be limited. Yes, on the topic, not, but that's not the one about the MIHUs. That's the developer fees. So we didn't make a decision about whether we're going to extend the neighborhood center topic. Oh my gosh. Well, we need to talk about that. While we wait for him, I'm going to raise a question.
Yes.
We did not decide whether or not we're going to extend the neighborhood center thing to September. Can we take a vote on that?
We're not
No,
going to.
because we're going to wait for Janet's new proposal.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, that will have.
It's not happening.
That will
That's over.
push the timeline. Then we'll build the timeline around.
Okay.
the proposal. I think the sense is we will discuss Janet's proposal and then figure out where to go from there and what
Okay.
the timeframe is.
All right.
This is bridge number 24 in Long Reach. It's a stabilization project, and of course we have the before and after picture. What's interesting is that CA staff performed the work, and the bigger stones weigh about 6,000 pounds.
Yeah, how did they do that?
That's some big guys, huh?
They are big guys, and it's not as if they fit together perfectly. Yet what we do is we stack them in a parking lot to figure out which goes where, dry stack them there, and then we number them and take them out to the site.
Oh, wow.
So you could build the CA pyramids.
Maybe we could do that.
So Dennis, our one dog took exception to those rocks sitting there. He just kept barking like he knew they were not supposed to be there. So he was very relieved that that work was completed.
Oh, so good.
So there is a pathway that goes across the Elkhorn forebay, and you can see the people at the top, and you can see the pipe that runs through that that little berm or dam. And so we've been working, trying to get MDE to give us a permit for what now seems like 10 years. It's probably been 12 months. And we're this close, and then, of course, we're now working our way towards the stream closure period, which we're now asking for a waiver, because that's about fish swimming upstream for spawning. And if you looked at the other side, there's no fish that's jumping that berm. So it's just never going to happen. So as soon as we get that waiver, we're going to start working. We'll work through that until it's done. The residents have been waiting a long time for that to open. And when you're there standing on top of that berm at that pathway, that's not someplace you want to fall. It's every bit as high as it looks. So there's a new bridge and boardwalk, hole number 5 at the Fairway Hills Golf Course. This is one of our last wooden bridges I think we ordered 9 or 10 fiberglass bridges. We're still installing them.
Can I ask a question about the bridges? So I thought that the bridges had to have the smaller gaps between the planks.
So that's on the golf course. It's not as much for pedestrian use.
So,
that's hole number 5 at Fairway.
yeah, I mean, so then if I go back to the stream stabilization bridge, the reason that one doesn't have to have it is, I'm just trying to understand the rules. That one doesn't have the narrow gaps also.
So all the new fiberglass bridges will have the narrow gap.
But it's not a law.
Yeah. Well, we treat it as if it was a law.
I'm confused. But is it the?
No, it's not. It's not a hard and fast law.
So Renee, the answer is we did not touch the bridge. So if we build a new bridge, if we replace this bridge, we will do the narrow slab.
With the fiberglass, the new
This
fiberglass
was
bridge.
focused on the
But it's not a
underpinning.
law.
Correct.
Okay, got it. Just trying to.
But it says it's a new bridge.
So the bridge was actually picked up and moved and put back in place. It really wasn't a new bridge.
Okay, I'm good.
Okay.
Move on.
Can Alan see this? I guess not.
No.
Yeah, he should. It should be.
I can see it.
Has it in the packet.
I can see it on my computer.
Okay. So roof replacement at Stonehouse. We had some leaks in the roof, and it was time to replace that roof. The new tribe room.
Renee?
So how much does the new tribe room cost? About?
So the construction cost is around $100,000.
$100,000.
And I think in equipment, it might be half again that much.
So 50,000 in equipment.
Correct.
Okay, so.
I know the construction cost, that number I know for sure.
You're right. Is it possible by email, not tonight, that you could get me the cost for the construction of the tribe rooms at the other 2 gyms? I'm just curious what our total investment in that program is, and could you just do that?
Yeah, so that
Yeah,
might.
we'll get Dan to do it.
We'll
Yeah.
have to figure out. So
Yeah,
that,
not tonight.
Yeah.
they were rolled into the
I know,
other construction
about.
work, but I can give you
An estimate.
an estimate. Correct.
That's all I'm asking.
I can do
I don't need the pennies.
Lobby upgrades at Kaler Hall, these are ongoing. I don't know if anybody's been over there, but there's a lot of work taking place there right now.
And we appreciate it.
Okay, well, somebody's been there. So we removed a bunch of invasive plants from that little pergola at the Amherst House.
What is that stuff growing there?
I don't know the name of it.
It looks
It's
like-
bad. Whatever it is, it's bad stuff.
And people were very sad because that pergola is absolutely gorgeous. And people go out there and they get married underneath that, and they absolutely love it when it's blooming. So
Well, let's plant some
I'm
clematis
just saying.
and call it a day.
We actually did replant it with some native species, and couldn't stand up to the invasive. We'll try that again.
I was just going to say, is there something else that you can do there? So you'll try again?
Yes.
Okay.
You could get big.
Some new HVAC equipment at the Columbia Gym and the River Hill meeting room was just installed. A new theater sound system at Slayton House
It's in?
is in process.
Oh, I was going to say.
Some of it's in, but it's not 100%.
Okay, that's good. Thank you.
We installed a new dehumidification system on the Columbia Athletic Club that serves the physical therapy pool.
Oh, that's John McCoy.
We did several different bugs that bite talks at multiple of the.
Get back to so I wanted to stop and say that we're very proud of how many members we serve at the clubs. But one of the things we like to do in open space is reach out to the community. And these are some of the programs that we use to reach out to the community members. Let's see. It was really a great.
We did several different bugs that bite talks at multiple of the villages. And we talk about ticks, we talk about mosquitoes and ways to reduce them or reduce our contact with them.
So since 2012, the Columbia Association has been a partner with the EPA's Energy Star program. And we've been recognized in the past, but this past year we received a Partner of the Year award for our promotion of Energy Star in the community. We were recognized at a national conference in April in Washington, D.C. It's one of our shining achievements. We're very proud of it. It definitely distinguishes CA as a leader in environmental sustainability in the community. And I think it's something we should all be very proud of.
Weed Warriors we do in cooperation with Howard Community College and University of Maryland Extension, and is our program to enlist the help of residents with managing invasive weeds in open space. And you got to give residents credit. Weed Warriors is work. And going out there with a wrench, or weed wrench as we call it, and pulling multiflora rows and then digging holes and replanting plant material is work. We're real proud of the residents who go all the way through that, get their certification, and then they go out in open space. They tell us where they're working. They tell us what they're doing, how many hours they spend on it, which we then bring back to corporate when they ask about volunteer hours.
Any questions for Dennis?
Nope.
Thank you very much, Dennis.
I
Appreciate
just want to
it.
say publicly thank you for Hyla Brook and the people of the Burgess.
It does nothing.
Thank
It
you.
seems to take forever.
All right, tracking forms, any questions? Proposed new topics, any? Nope. Talking points. Oh, this is gonna be fun, boy. Yeah.
Okay, talking point number one, Sewell's Orchard Pond retrofit construction easement was approved. by consent. Talking point number 2, the Eden Brook construction easements were approved.
Put in there 3 of them. The 3 easements were approved.
Okay,
Just so we have the number and everybody is on the same page.
You need to specify 2 temporary ones.
Yeah, I was just going to
2
say.
temporary and 1
scratched
permanent.
all that part
Temporary
out,
and
so
one
I will put
permanent.
all that back in.
Want to make
You
sure
have
it
a
gets in the
short-term memory
minutes.
problem.
Yes.
Actually, a long-term memory problem, but
Sorry, Bonnie.
myself in the.
Okay. Talking point 3, Columbia Association policy on community grants will be adjusted by Michelle for the February meeting. Talking point 4, the April stakeholders dinner invitees will be the chair or their designee plus 1 other person of each Columbia Association Advisory Committee. Talking point number 6. Sorry, talking point number 5. There'll be a letter to express concern that the in lieu funding is not being used on site. Talking point number 6 is relates to the 1520 limit on developer contributions. The board to express concern in a letter to the delegation that campaign contributions can be unfairly influenced. Talking point number 7.
Well, excuse me.
Yes.
Does it say developer campaign contributions, not just campaign contributions?
Developer, okay.
Although one could say that too.
Also, could you be more specific around the in lieu of, that it has to do with MIHU housing requirements?
Can we clean that up?
Yeah, we can clean that up.
You can.
We'll clean that up.
Okay, no problem. Talking point number 7. Support the HOCO 2820, the butterfly building design. Talking point 8. The IAT working group moved to accept that plan. And talking point 9, there was a move to have Dick as a representative and Sherry as a backup to be the representative to the IAT working group. And I think that is it.
I think to be more explicit, we didn't approve a plan. We approved our participation in their plan, in their committee.
Okay, move to accept the plan, the IAT working group plan?
Move to
No, not, we
participate.
didn't.
Move to participate.
To participate in their process,
And actually,
in their
it's in the
committee.
development of the plan, right?
Yeah, it's not a plan.
It's not a plan.
That word should not be in there.
Okay.
And we are supporting the butterfly bond bill.
Bill.
Yeah. 250,000. What? 250,000.
Okay. That looks like you caught everything I had.
Okay.
Thank you, Bonnie. All right. So we're just a little bit behind schedule. So unless I hear an objection, we're going to adjourn. So without objection, we are adjourned. Thank you very much. Appreciate all you coming out. We're going on chairman's remarks. You all got a chance to read it. If you have any questions, let me know.